Hello. Welcome everyone to Sweatlords podcast episode 9, I think. We done 9 of these some bitches. Today I think we're going to talk about holy shit, Garrett. I don't know what you're talking about. Garrett has his webcam on for the first time. Today we're going to be
always have my webcam on.
Yeah, true. It's always
on.
It's always
Just
a picture
it
of
changes with the seasons.
Yep. Anyways, unimportant stuff aside, today we're going to have a little follow-up to our conversation about Elden Ring from previously. Now that that was like 2 fucking months ago, and a lot of us just finished the game. I think Parker's been finished with it for a while, but I just finished it. But before we get into that, I suppose I may as well introduce everyone. Parker, actually, all of you guys have been here before. A bunch of times, even. Yeah. Parker's here almost every week. Garrett's been here a bunch. Zach, probably the least, but you've still been here like 3 or 4 times. So,
like that.
Yeah. But Parker did want to share.
To do with my life, so.
Except for create the ultimate diet plan, right?
Oh yeah. So this
I
came about by
this.
mistake. I wanted to introduce some good vitamins and minerals to my diet, and also eat less calories. So I've been making liver. And I've been meal prepping. Yeah.
How do you
soak it in milk?
What?
What?
Yeah, well, it's very bitter if you don't soak it in milk.
What the fuck?
Is it significantly less bitter if you do soak it in milk?
Oh, it's super bitter if you don't soak it in milk.
I see, but like milk is pretty. Does it just take like the acidity out of it or something, or like what?
It must. I don't know.
I've heard liver's really good for you, so I mean like
that's why I wanted to eat it, because it's like really high in vitamin A and whatever. The thing is, it doesn't taste good.
Yeah.
So I meal prep it, and then I eat a lot less because I feel guilty if I cook something else or order food when I know that I have a meal prepped in my fridge, but I also don't want to eat it. So
that's actually
I'll eat lunch at like
psychopathic diet strategy. Also try meal prepping some bitches.
Speaking of psychopathic as well, my hands smell like blood for like 2 days after I make the liver.
After a liver sesh.
It's the worst thing to prepare.
That sounds miserable.
Couldn't you just eat chicken like a normal person?
When you take the liver out of the milk looks like strawberry milk, but it's just liver juice. And
liver juice,
tasty. Fuck.
Do you think there's nutritional value to drinking the liver juice?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
salmonella probably.
That's wild.
Oh, it's beef liver. Okay.
Chicken liver is good in a stew though, but I've been making beef liver.
Do you ever make like sweet potatoes and shit? Like sweet potatoes don't stain your hands with blood.
I eat liver, onion, and asparagus.
Christ, you know, there's easier ways to diet. Have you heard of intermittent fasting?
That's not like all I eat, and I have done
just don't eat
fasting.
How about that?
There you go.
I eat eggs. Sometimes a lot more than I planned because I crack them, and then I have to eat all of the cracked ones.
Okay, and then all the shell, right? Get all
the
shell in there.
You got to get your calcium.
Good fiber.
I want to get back to the milk though for just 1 second. Would it not taste better if you did this process with chocolate milk?
Chocolate liver.
Disgusting.
What about with Kool-Aid?
Like Nesquik,
or Gatorade,
something for a little extra thickness in there.
Gatorade, or some Pedialyte to take the bitterness out of your liver.
Oh,
there you go.
Nice.
Although I can say I'm soaking my liver and mean that in a good way, as opposed to just alcoholism. So
yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that. Honestly, if you said you were
picture of my strawberry milk,
if you said you were soaking your liver, well, my first question would be, what do you mean? Because no one who's ever just like having a drink is like, I'm soaking my liver right now.
I feel like I've heard that as an expression before.
It sounds like something you would say, and you specifically.
Okay.
I don't know why, but you seem to always come through with like the old world phrases, like stuff that I've never heard before.
It is like. It has a texture of like a slug, though. It's not pleasant to prepare.
What part do you like about it?
Why are you even preparing it? Just swallow it whole. Like, Come on.
People eat raw eggs.
It's very lubricated. You could
some kind of
probably
coward,
swallow
or-
a quarter pound at a time, and it would just go straight down.
I mean, here's the thing: like when you ferment it in milk, it loses all of its vitamins. That's all the red stuff that goes in the milk. So you gotta just swallow that like it's an oyster, dude.
Garrett's a doctor. I trust him.
Just get it, get it all down there. Yeah.
You can tell by his feed there that he's
Like you're
he knows a
already
lot about
like you've already gone for
nutrition
your
and
diet.
culinary art.
For your diet, you've already gone 0 to 60. Why not just go 0 to 100? Like just say fuck it. Just eat the entire liver.
Kill the cow yourself and fish the liver out of their torso and then eat it raw.
When I take it out of the plastic packaging, just suck down the juices.
Salt it up first.
So-
straight up.
Someone clicked on my stream notification and was like, "Oh, Elden Ring. I want to hear their thoughts on Elden Ring." And then this is what they get. We're talking about fucking eating raw liver and drinking liver
There
juice.
is a lot of raw meat as items in Elden Ring, though.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, what a great
I-
great segue. Parker clearly had this thought.
and I never crafted with any of them.
Nope.
No.
Single thing, yeah.
I guess as far as Elden Ring goes, I guess we could probably start from the top here. So what, I guess everyone just could give like a rundown of like their experience with the game. Because I think at this point we're all done with it. And just like, I guess like quick, because we got off on a big tangent last time about like other Souls experience, but like what other like Souls games you played, and just like in general, like what your build was and like just how you felt about the game in general, and then we can go into more specifics. So I don't know if you want to start, Parker, but because I think you've been done with the game for the longest.
Actually, it's funny you say that because since I beat Elden Ring, I beat Dark Souls 3 and started Sekiro. So
Damn.
Jesus.
Was it your first time playing 3?
It's not my first time playing it. It's my first time beating it. I
okay.
didn't beat it the first time. I tried to play it with Ryan, and which meant that we just got invaded constantly by people with like broken builds.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's how
But
co-op
the
is in
servers are
Elden Ring
offline,
too.
so yeah. But yeah, I usually just, I don't know, I like to play them pretty straight up, just like dexterity builds, because magic is broken. So
Magic
yeah,
is
I guess
definitely
I'm-
actually, yeah, no, it is pretty broken in Dark Souls, isn't it?
yeah,
It's just not fun to
I
me,
feel
really.
like it's whether it's effective or not, it doesn't feel like the intended like experience to me. So nothing against people that use it because play the games how you want, but I don't enjoy it.
It feels a
as
little
much.
more so intended in Elden Ring, but
Yeah,
there's also like more magic skills in Elden Ring. Dark Souls games, it just feels like it's kind of an afterthought. I would agree with that.
I think mixing your class is much more encouraged in Elden Ring than some of the previous Souls games, but I'm not an expert. I've played through the ones I played once. I'm not like some big Souls guy. So yeah, that's really all I got.
Yeah. Garrett?
Well, I played with mostly just magic spells the entire time. So
Which
it's
is
a
fine.
good lead in for me. But I thoroughly enjoyed
We can get your
playing as a
perspective, which is
prisoner.
nice. So
Yeah, like overall, yes, it is one of those types of builds where you spend a lot of time just dodging and then casting, and then hopefully whatever you're casting doesn't take like 5 or 10 seconds to deploy. Otherwise, you're basically dead. But that's like with any move in the game, though. Like
Yeah,
some
that's totally.
weapons have like a huge wind up, which is like completely impossible to use for some bosses and enemies. But I found that a majority of the spells, there is a lot of shit that I think works better for like PvP, because the whole goal of PvP is to be as confusing as possible. So you have this giant array of spells that might suck, but it might not be something. It might be something that nobody expects.
Yeah, for
So-
sure.
But with PvE, there's like very specific spells that you just use like the entire time, and as soon as you get them, like you're set. So
when your enemies fight with no regard for their own lives, so like you have
Yeah.
very little time to cast when everything's just running.
Yeah.
at you.
Well, and the
Yeah,
PvP meta seems geared towards like, or the PvE meta, I should say, seems geared towards like everyone is using cheese. Just find your like brand of cheese, basically, like,
Yeah.
and then use that. Yeah.
But one of the the issues that I noticed immediately with the prisoner is they start off with the magic glint blade, which can pretty much carry you for like
Such a good
half of the
spell.
game. Like I found a majority of the spells that I was getting at the beginning of the game were like, oh, these are cool, but they're not nearly as good as the glint blade because the fact that you can cast it and then there's a delay and then it fires means that enemies will dodge when you try to cast and then still get hit by the glint blade.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was very, very cheesy, super cheesy, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed it thoroughly. I have no regrets.
I actually find that the starting equipment, at least of most of the classes that I'm aware of, other than Wretch, which like the point of Wretch is that you're basically putting yourself at a disadvantage, that the starting equipment is actually very good. The starting samurai armor and sword, the Uchigatana, can absolutely carry you through the game with like if you upgrade it to plus 25 with like a good Ash of War like Bloody Slash or Seppuku. And the armor is like you can purchase it on any class, but you have to go to Caelid to do it. So it's already kind of like
get pretty far to get it.
You could also just run to Caelid, but like most people are not sprinting through Caelid. Yeah, they're not going to know that. So
A smart new player.
yeah. All right, cool. And Garrett, you kind of have you got Souls experience out the wazoo, right? You played pretty much every game.
Yes, I haven't finished Sekiro. But
Okay.
I think, you know, and oh, what's the other one? Way before Dark Souls 2. Demon Souls.
Demon
right?
Souls, yeah.
Yeah, that's another one I still haven't played, but
I'll
one,
play the
2,
remastered
3,
at some point. But
and I guess technically I'm not done with 2 either because I'm playing that.
Oh,
with,
yeah, that's right.
Ryan, but the servers went down, so we're kind of just on hiatus
have you
for
been
that.
playing that with Ryan since like 2018?
No. That was
You guys,
literally like last year.
yeah, you were playing. I
Was
remember
it?
you guys playing right before the servers went down because I had just started
Yeah.
Dark Souls 1, and I remember talking about it with you guys.
You guys, did you guys stop and then start again? I don't know why, but
No,
I just
well, the
feel
only
like it would've
reason
been a
we
long,
stopped
long
was
time
because
ago.
of the servers going down, and that was when
Okay.
the remote executable issue happened, and then they just shut off all the servers for all the games.
This might be the first like memory I'm having where I'm not angry at how long ago it actually
Yeah,
was.
right.
Instead, it was just
Yeah.
last year. It feels
fairly
good.
recent. I mean, like me and Ryan have probably talked about games before, but or Souls games before, but this is the first time we've done like a co-op thing.
Yeah.
All
All right.
what was your question?
I just
Sorry.
asked like what your Souls experience is like, and I think you pretty much answered it. You played all of them, haven't finished 2, haven't finished Sekiro. Basically, was the gist.
Yep.
And then Zach, you're a greenhorn, right? This is your first one.
Yeah.
So we
I
actually have
played-
quite a nice variety here, because Ryan is more like Garrett, where he's played most of them. But I'm actually very curious about some of your experiences and your take, having this being your first.
First one I've
Souls
committed
game.
to.
Yeah.
I played exactly 2 hours of Dark Souls, and the reason I know it was 2 hours is because I returned it on Steam
Oh.
after that point. Something about it just wasn't clicking for me, but I absolutely adored this one.
Yeah.
I jumped all over the place with my builds. I started out as Astrologer, then I moved over to like Dex Int once I got the Moon Veil. And then I was getting tired of using that, so I switched over completely to a Strength and Faith build.
Yeah.
And then went back to Dex Int, and then once I hit Millennia, decided that wasn't working, so I swapped over to Arcane and Dex. With Rivers of
Yes,
Blood.
Rivers of Blood.
So-
yeah, cool.
That was a lot of fun. I think we could probably talk about this more later, but like my whole thing was there are so many weapons in this game, and as someone that's played a lot of Monster Hunter, typically when I would get bored with a weapon, I would immediately swap over to something else. And this game is, as far as I've been told, far more accessible for that in respecking and things like that.
Yeah, it's
than
the
past
only
Souls
one,
games.
I think. I think it's the only one where you can respec without just
You
like.
can respec in 3.
Can you in
but
3?
it's
Okay.
limited.
I haven't played 3, so.
Much more limited.
I can't even remember where it happens in 3, but
You need to go up to the top of that cathedral with the larva people, which is actually, now that I think about it, really similar to
Yeah,
Elden
it kind of
Ring,
is, isn't
like
it?
context.
larvas.
You say
yeah.
larva people, and I just think of Bloodborne. So because they're a bunch
It's-
of weird looking, gross people that look
Yeah.
like larva.
I'm pretty sure it's Dark Souls 3's version of the like great chest ahead. There's a lady laying in a bed that
Is there?
rebirths you. I don't know.
That
What's
is
her number?
that's actually very similar to to Elden Ring too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I guess Elden Ring is like I get where you're coming from, Zach, in wanting to try out like a bunch of different playstyles, and I honestly kind of wish I had done more because like I'm sort of like I'm just running with New Game Plus now on like my finished game, or I want to. I haven't started it yet, but I'm thinking like I'm gonna do like a pole blade build. But then I'm like, that's literally Dex Arcane. That's what I've been doing. It's literally just like a bleed build again. So I'm maybe going to just roll a new character and do like a Strength Faith or something. And try to use like Rykard's sword, which seems really fun.
It is really strong.
Yeah. And but yeah, I don't know. I guess like I kind of admire you for trying out a bunch of different stuff, and like I guess on one hand it does kind of suck that the game isn't like even more accommodating for like changing your playstyle, but I also kind of get it at some point too.
Oh
like,
yeah, absolutely. It's accommodating enough.
Yeah, for sure.
Considering how many larval tiers you can get. I think more my thing was I switched off of the strength build, which was using a twin blade, because I had next to no ranged attacks with that setup.
Yeah.
And like dungeon exploring was a nightmare with it. Whereas where the sorcery kind of shined was I had lots of ranged options, and that made just general traversal pretty easy, but I didn't like fighting bosses with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
So
I
wanted to
honestly
kind of flip back and forth, but you can't do it that often.
Yeah. I liked having just like a couple weapons. Like I had kind of like a slow, hard hitting weapon. I had like a faster weapon that I could kind of use for like quicker attacks and like a little bit of crowd control. And then I had like a blunt weapon for people that are weak to strike. But I really ended up
Crystal Knights.
They're so annoying.
The sound and animation is like scientifically engineered to make you angry when they're doing their little bouncy stab thing. I want to Alt F4. I just hate it so much, and it goes for so long, and you can't like attack in between their attacks.
I have that listed as one of my least favorite bosses in the game. I like, as somebody who like really had, I think they were magic resistant, and I had to run around like a chicken with its head cut off, trying to find like a spell that actually worked.
Was it the trio? The trio?
The crystallines. Or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, crystal.
Okay, I didn't know if specifically you hated the trio or what, because
all of them.
The Crystallian trio I know is very hated.
The entire like just design and movement and everything. I despise, because like you can't really tell you're doing damage until much later, and
until
I guess
you
it depends
crack
on
them.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. Like when you're fighting them, it kind of feels like, especially if you die early, you're thinking to yourself, okay, none of my weapons are effective. But that's not the case at all. You just need to like spend another like 5 minutes in there.
Like even if you are using a blunt weapon and like cracking them faster, it still doesn't look like you're doing damage. So like if you switch to a blunt thinking, oh, this must be strong against them, the game will tell you that you're wrong for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I hate them.
Yeah.
I'm over it now. Like I think if I fight them with like a two-handed weapon, I'll probably be like less pissed, hopefully. But yeah, fighting them with spells was not great.
Yeah, so I never fought the trio. I did fight like the duo boss, where it was two of the Crystallians, but that was the farthest I ever got with them. And I was pretty fucking overleveled for that, so I just like steamrolled them without knowing that like I needed a blunt weapon. Like I was just using a slash weapon, and I just melted them.
The boss version was definitely a lot easier than the ones you come across as like just world enemies in the later games.
I just avoided the ones in the Halig tree. Yeah.
So the crimson ones at the Halig tree, and there's like 3 of them.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about with the trio?
Well, there's also a boss, like in it might be in the snowfields or mountaintops. I don't know. It's a late game area though, that has like a dungeon with an actual boss encounter. That's the Crystallian trio. Yeah.
I either missed it or some of those just start to blend together because they repeat
Yeah.
so many bosses. But when I encounter them as like a world enemy and there's 3 of the crimson ones, I just cheese them and drew aggro one at a time. That
Hmm.
was like the only way I could stomach it.
Yeah, so actually that's a good segue into like the first kind of like bullet point I had. So how did you guys feel about like the open world of the game? Because I know there's like, I think the open world is one of the things that's been like praised the most about the game, and I think most people generally like it, but you know, there's always the conversation of like how does it work like in the context of a Souls game? Like, do you guys feel like it's too big, maybe? And like, I guess in general, just what were your favorite and least favorite aspects about it? And I can kind of start. I guess like I loved it personally. Like I think it's one of the most compelling open world games that I've played in general. And I really liked the open world up until Altus. And then once I got to the mountaintops, I got pretty burned out on it. And I didn't feel like doing the dungeons and because I just knew that they were going to be filled with a whole bunch of like stuff that I've already seen and like just harder versions of enemies that I've already fought.
Like repeat bosses and stuff.
Yeah. So I felt like it kind of got a little bit too big for its britches at a certain point. But overall, I would still say that it's probably one of the best that I've played, like in terms of just like an open world game. It was like Breath of the Wild, but like the entire world like actually felt like populated and it wasn't like so empty like Breath of the Wild was.
The set piece design for all of the landmarks is
yeah,
still one of my favorite
so
things.
good.
And they took a lot of their experience from like their other Souls games where they will design certain dungeons or areas where like you're looking across a valley or something and you can see where you're supposed to go, but you're not quite sure how to get there, and you have to weave through like a giant labyrinth or like a bunch of different enemy encounters in order to get there. And Elden Ring does that very well, like right from the get-go in terms of landmarking, where you don't necessarily need to go there, but the player is responsible for like going, I want to check out that castle. That castle looks sick as fuck. So I think that kind of design needs to be applied more, especially if there's going to be more like open world games like this.
There's actually a great like comparison to Breath of the Wild that can be made there too, where like the little like kind of throwaway dungeons in Breath of the Wild are like, they're like beacons of light. Like you're just naturally drawn to them, but then like the actual importance of them is very low. Whereas I feel like Elden Ring treated like each dungeon, be it small or like, you know, a giant like dungeon with like stories and like main quest stuff in it, with like an appropriate amount of importance. Like, so, you know, little catacombs and shit were like, sometimes we're hidden under like illusory walls and like
way too hidden
floors. And yeah, but maybe too hidden, like practically. But again, it's like, this is the stuff that like, that Miyazaki said he didn't think that everyone would explore. He didn't even necessarily want everyone to explore it. He just like, they populated the world with stuff, but like didn't expect everyone to go and do everything. And you know, there's certainly like an argument against that from like a practicality standpoint, because it's like, well, yeah, no shit, people are gonna try and 100% the game. But from a design standpoint, I like that you're not constantly like, go here, go here, go here. Like you don't have so many things like just like competing for your attention. Like the important shit gets across.
What's your opinion on the sites of grace having like the little like points of interest, like directional stuff, right? Like because when you rest at a site of grace, there's always like something pointing you in a certain direction. Is that pointing you to like points of interest, or is it pointing you to another site of grace?
It points you to like the critical path in that region.
Yeah,
because I almost never followed that.
It points you to the next.
It's sort of a way of guaranteeing that you will be able to find like the next forward site of grace. It's not a needed feature, but I don't think it really hurt anything.
Sure.
It points you to the next site of grace, like in the sequence, until you get to where you're going, basically.
A great rune usually.
Yeah. Sometimes I think like the shaded castle, and so like Castle Soul, some places that don't have great runes like had waypoints still, but it's just kind of to like generally guide you on the right path.
Yeah. And did you ever
takes you to the
find yourself
end of the
using that,
legacy dungeon?
Yeah. Did I find it useful?
I found Yeah, because like I found a lot of the placement of the landmarks and goals and where you're supposed to go, um, really well done in certain areas. Other
Hmm.
places I definitely got lost, but
Yeah.
in those circumstances, I totally should have used the gray sites to direct myself.
I
But
think there are places where you're supposed to get lost, like Stormvale and Volcano
Sewers.
Manor. And the sewers for sure. The sewers were basically a Dark Souls dungeon.
crumbling Farum, Azula.
Yeah.
Farum
I
Azula
got
was pretty linear. I felt
yeah,
like
I got
didn't-
lost.
It
I
is,
got a
but
little lost at one point.
there's a lot of
but-
side paths, which I liked about
Yeah.
that. But yeah. But I think like actually one of the coolest moments I had in any of those legacy dungeons is if you just like follow the path in Volcano Manor, and you'll go like over rooftops and through buildings and through dungeons and shit. Like it takes you through the whole fucking thing. And then if you go far enough, I think it's hidden by a stone sword key. But if you keep going basically as far as you can, it will eventually lead you back into the like main manor. Like you go through this room with like a whole bunch of like crumbling like chandeliers and stuff, and then eventually there's like an illusory wall that just spits you back out into the manor, which I thought was dope because I didn't realize I had made like a full
Yeah,
loop.
I know what you're talking about.
I thought that was very
I
cool.
popped through a wall and like Patches was sitting
Yeah,
there, and I'm like,
exactly.
when the hell did I get back
I was like,
here?
oh, this place is cool. Like I'm looking at all of like the chandeliers and like all the it's like there's a room with like a bunch of those like crawling albinorics on the ground. And I was like, oh, this place is really cool. And then I was like, I wonder, this must be leading up to the boss. And then it just goes back into the room with like Patches and Tanith and like all them. And I was like, what the fuck? But I thought that was cool.
Technically kind of does though, because you can get to the boss through Tanith.
Yeah, well, that's true. There's also the like, I don't know, the teleporter or whatever that takes you there. But yeah. What other legacy dungeons did you guys like? I know Raya Lucaria obviously is like one that we haven't touched on, but I think it's one that a lot of people liked.
Garrett,
Easily
did
one of my
you
favorites.
oh, you like that one as a
Just
caster?
like well yeah, that was like getting through it was a colossal pain in the ass, but
you get all your
I-
good
in
items
terms
there.
of- yes,
True.
that's the other like reason why I liked it a lot. But visually, I just really like the Gothic architecture that they
Oh, yeah.
combined with all the different like purples and starry space looking environment. So
Yeah. In the entire
yes.
game, one of the most like photo painterly moments is like when you first step out of the bridge, like when you first get into Raya Lucaria. That shit's so cool. Like the way they frame the entire like, I don't even know what you want to call it, just like the main building and the bridge.
composition.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I had a very similar experience with the Noxtella, the Eternal City, because just the way, I don't know, it's something about the color palette that they use for that
Yeah.
area I really enjoyed.
Yeah. I guess I didn't even think about that because I don't know if the game like counts it as a legacy dungeon, but it is like a cool, especially if you follow like the whole kind of, it's easy to miss some stuff if you're not looking it up on the wiki, I guess, but the experience of like following like Radahn's meteor like into Nokron, going like all the way through Nokron, fighting the gargoyles, crawling in the fucking coffin, going down to Deeproot, crawling in the coffin there, going down to Noxtella, going all the way down to the Lake of Rot. Like I seriously had like a whole week of play sessions where I was not once like above ground. And then it all caps off with like the boss fight with Estelle, which is like one of the coolest like visually boss fights in the game. And I enjoyed it too as a fight. I know opinions are kind of mixed on that among some people, but
It was cool too because way earlier in the game you can access the, I can't remember what it's called, the something river in the southeast underneath
Theofra.
yeah, that's the first one.
Siofra. And you can like look up and see that there's stuff up there, and like your map kind of hints that like there's more to where you are, but you can't find any way to get there. So it was kind of cool to, after a pretty big gap in gameplay, go to somewhere that you saw like 30 hours of playtime ago.
Yeah,
What's-
like the game is very, very good at teasing areas that like eventually you come back to, and I think
Well, and extra credit to them. It's all real. It's not like so in like Dark Souls, like they do have very, very pretty dioramas that are, essentially painted on to the background, and then they cheated a lot with like little with the walls of light. But in this case, like approaching Stormvale in the beginning, like it looks. I'm not the first one to say this. It's like paintings all the way there. Like no matter where you stand, you look in a direction, and it's framed like you were supposed to be at that point.
Yep. It's very cool too how Stormvale is like a checkpoint too, or like a choke point, I should say, I guess, like where you kind of get funneled in there. And we can talk about bosses later, but I just like that like world design of like Stormvale kind of being the gate to like the rest of the game. Then
there's another gate between that next area and Altus.
The deck. Yeah, it's not.
Points.
I guess you could go up like the ruins, which
there's
honestly
ways around. Yeah.
The Dectus lift.
You can do that with Stormvale too, though.
Yeah, true, but you have to come back and fight Godric. He's technically a required boss, which is weird because Margit isn't. Well, Margit. We'll get to that, but he's required at some point, just not on the bridge to Stormvale. But yeah, the Dectus lift actually is quite boring. So anyone who just went straight for the lift and didn't go like up the ruins, I feel like they missed out, honestly, because that whole area was very cool. There's a tornado warning here. If Mr. Dumpster flies away, you know why. Holy shit! Wait, should I like?
I mean, are you hearing?
No, there's no sirens going off or anything.
I'm hearing thunder.
Do what you did at do what we did at my house back in the day. We'll just go on the deck.
Yeah, you and me. That's right. Yeah.
And then you'll throw a wet sock against my window.
God, I can't believe I did that.
Remember that?
No, the truth is no, I don't remember that.
But I wanted to ask. I don't remember why Godric is required. I can't fucking talk.
Yeah, I don't actually know.
Because you only need a certain number of remembrances or great runes or whatever.
It might be the introduction to like the mechanic of the great runes, like that you need to sort of like kick off the rest of the game. I'm not sure though, but he is technically required.
Fight him. He gives you a talisman slot, if I remember correctly. It would be really stupid not to fight him, even if he was optional. So.
Yeah, and if you've gone past Stormvale, you're at that point you're probably over leveled anyways, and may as well fight him.
Right.
You totally could actually. I mean, not that he's easy to miss, but you could miss him for a while if you explored Stormvale and just missed that turn.
Yeah.
It's fairly obvious, but it's not super obvious that there's something plot critical at the end of that path.
I don't think you can get out of Stormvale without fighting Godric, but you
true.
could go around
you
it.
Can go around.
Yeah.
You have to go around if you want to do it that way.
But that's a much less like obvious and telegraphed path. In fact, I'd already been that way, and the other day I was looking for it, like just out of curiosity, and I couldn't find it for a while. And then I was like, "Oh right, you go down on the bridge by the finger reader, and then you."
I found that first. Before
I found that first as well. Because I knew it wanted me to go into the gate, so my first thought was like, "Well, what if I just go around?" Oh, and there's a back room of like cut content. In the back of Stormvale, did you guys find that? If you go around the shortcut, you can enter through a door in the back. Oh, you know what?
Oh no, that's the way out. That's the way out after you fight Godric.
I never went through there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I never, even after fighting Godric. So I went around the back, and then I didn't even know that was the way you're supposed to come from the other direction.
Yeah.
And then you get grapes.
That's the normal way out.
Which are eyes.
You get grapes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The grapes are eyes, which is kind of not unexpected, but still
not
unpleasant.
I love that when you tell that NPC, she's like, "Oh my god, that's disgusting." But
She's
I kind of like her more
she
now.
died for me. I found her twice ever, and then I just found her corpse later on. That was my experience. With
Yeah, it's sometimes like that.
That's a very Dark Souls.
A lot of quests.
Like, yeah,
it did not go well.
I missed a few completely. Like I knew about Dung Eater and I didn't follow it because I don't really care about him and his desire to spread his fucking curse. He just seemed like an asshole. And
I finished his.
You don't want to eat shit.
And, like unlocked the
It is kind of dope how there's a Tarnished who is like, fuck that whole Elden Ring business. I just want to eat shit and spread my curse.
The furious devourer of fecal matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Consumer.
Lonesome.
Lonesome dung eater.
Lonesome dung eater. That whoever narrates that.
Yeah, he went off.
10 out of 10.
He needs an award. Arise, ye tarnished. It's so good. I get chills when I watch it still.
But yeah, I mean, as far as legacy dungeons go, I don't think there was any that I didn't like. I would understand if most people's least favorite was the sewers.
Yeah.
But it was kind of at least like they weren't all like that. Like it was kind of nice to have one legacy dungeon that felt like a proper like I'm lost. This is Dark Souls like area.
I didn't dislike the sewers that much, but I also didn't bother to fully explore them. I know there's a couple things I missed down there, and I was like, I don't want to backtrack again. I don't mind being lost. I just hate when you have to I'm going to teleport back to Grace because I don't know where I am and I know I missed an item. So I'm going to backtrack, and then you see another item that you missed that you can't get to, so you have to backtrack again. That's what bothers me is when you have to keep teleporting back just to get to items.
Yeah, I know.
Stormvale does that a bit with the rooftops.
Raya Lucaria does that a lot.
Yep, Raya Lucaria. Like you'll drop down on a roof and it's like it'll fork. So you can only go one way and you can't go back without teleporting to the previous side of Grace.
Yeah.
And they do that in a lot of places, and it gets pretty annoying to be like, all right, dude, I just came through here.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, Raya Lucaria had some like shortcuts and stuff too. Like there is a shortcut from basically the end of it to the beginning, in that first little like chapel area where you can drop down a ladder. But I kicked it down and I was like all excited. I was like, oh, I found like a shortcut that lets me go like all the way around. And then I was like, why the fuck would I ever use this? I can just teleport right back to the Grace. So I like that they included that, but I'm also kind of like, what is the point? Like, I don't understand. Like, I almost feel like they should have just done like no teleporting in the the legacy dungeons like at all.
That makes sense because then you can have a much more controlled experience from like a design perspective. You're not constantly having to worry about players teleporting back to like another side of Grace and designing.
But then they'd have to that would also mean though that they'd have to design the levels so that you could get everything in one trip, which they did not do. You have to teleport back. You don't have to get
everything. What do you mean everything in one trip?
Like I was saying, like there's places where like if you drop down at a certain point on a roof, like you can't go back for other items, so you have to pick between two paths,
right?
Both of which are one-way trips.
Yeah,
and then to go to another item, you can see it's like, all right, we'll have to teleport back.
Yeah, they definitely designed the dungeons like around the like being able to teleport back.
Yeah.
To the sites of Grace, which like I think is a little bit of a missed opportunity. I still think the dungeons in this game were like the legacy dungeons, I should clarify, were on par with the quality of like some of the best areas in other Dark Souls games. But I just thought that there was a little bit of a missed opportunity where they could have made it so that you actually like sort of unlock shortcuts and things like that and find different paths like more organically like in previous Dark Souls games, rather than like having it so like, well, they'll go this way, hit a dead end, and then just teleport back, like which seems to be like what they were designed around. Like they knew people were going to do it that way, which it hardly ruins my enjoyment of them, but I think that was kind of like the kicker there. And maybe honestly it afforded them more design opportunities. Like I don't see how you could do all of Lanedale like completely interconnected where you could get anywhere from anywhere basically. But Lanedale ended up being my favorite of all the dungeons, but you know, the legacy areas. So maybe there's something to it then.
I didn't really
there's
like
a couple.
Oh, sorry. You're gonna say?
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna mention for the Royal Capital, I didn't really like the area covered in ash. Like after you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man, because like I there was like one weapon that I missed there, and if you don't get it before that happens, then you're basically fucked. You gotta go into New Game Plus and start over to get the weapon again. So.
Yeah, I kind of consider that differently from like Lanedale, the actual like legacy dungeon, because that at the end is like the game might class it as a legacy dungeon. I'm not sure, but like it's definitely like it's basically just a walk to what amounts to a boss rush at the end of the game, basically.
Yeah.
My simpleton brain basically determined that anytime I don't have a horse, I'm in a legacy dungeon. Which
pretty fair.
it for the most part was probably pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, when they did like the trailers, or not trailers, but like gameplay reveals, I think they even kind of said like, "Oh, you'll not have torrent during legacy dungeons," and that's at the point in my head was like, "That's what it means." Like how some people define a Souls game as a game where you can dodge roll.
I mean, got to start somewhere, I guess.
That might expand the range a little too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess
what I was saying about the...
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say with the pathing, Rhea Lucaria in particular, I found myself accidentally taking shortcuts backwards a lot when I was on the roofs, like looking for items. I'd be really proud of myself for finding somewhere I could like sneakily jump down and like make a really risky hop, and then I'd land somewhere that I had been like an hour ago.
Yeah.
I'm like, that didn't help at all. But it meant that everything was kind of real and interconnected. Like it felt like a place. So
yeah,
it was positive overall.
Raya Lucaria especially was interesting with all of the different like shortcuts and like interlinking that it had, because realistically it was pretty linear. It was linear with like maybe one or two major forks where you could go off like to a side area, like get some items, and then like basically you would just eventually hit a dead end. So it was kind of odd that they included all those like little connections, which I don't mind, but like generally when I went down to one of those places, I was like, I have no reason to go back here, basically.
Yeah, so you then teleport.
You just teleport back up, yeah.
I did like though that it was more organic as opposed to like, oh, I opened the other side of a locked door and here's an elevator that I can take to somewhere that I was earlier. Instead, like you would drop down from what felt like something that would exist in a normal world, and it would link up coincidentally instead of intentionally, which was kind of neat. It felt like a real place.
Yeah, I mean that's
a real fake place.
That's basically like the same thing in Leydendale, but just like to the absolute maximum, like extreme, because you can just like you can pretty much go on every rooftop, every balcony, whatever. Like you can't necessarily go inside every house, but like a lot of them you can.
Leydendale was nuts because there was just like streets. It was like a grid. Yeah,
but it still had kind of like an organic flow to it. It wasn't just like here are streets. Like it still kind of like funneled you into like.
They used lighting very, very well in Leydendale to give you a feeling of what was a side path and what was the way forward. Like what was a wider street and what was well lit is what led you forward for the most part. And then if you went into some dark alley, it was kind of implicit that wasn't the forward direction. So
you immediately get murdered by soldiers in the dark alley.
And then 20 soldiers and another tree
and a putrid tree spirit.
Putrid, and then an avatar, and then a freaking gargoyle.
Vord of the Boreal Valley, Dark Souls 3 bosses flying in.
Yep. I actually found I don't know about you guys. I'm sure everyone's experience was different, but I went like from Limgrave to Liurnia, to Altus, to Volcano Manor, to Leydendale. And by the time I got to Volcano Manor and Leydendale, I found that it was pretty easy. Like I felt like I was pretty over leveled for those at that point.
Did you do Caelid?
Yeah, sorry, Caelid. I did do between Liurnia and Altus, I want to say.
Okay.
My experience was basically Limgrave, Caelid, Liurnia, Caelid, Altus, Caelid, because I kept thinking, oh, I'm prepared now to go to Caelid, and I was pretty much always wrong.
So. Caelid felt harder than Altus at the time. At first, I was like, it seems like next I should go to Caelid, and then I started doing stuff, and I was like, it's pretty hard, but I know it's like supposed to be hard. But then I went to Altus, and I was like, Altus is fucking easy compared to Caelid, so maybe I did them in the wrong order.
I think it's
if you.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think it counts the Dragon Barrow as its own area, like of northern Caelid, because there is definitely a massive jump in enemy HP and damage.
Yeah.
Actually, that was one of not specifically Dragon Barrow, but the Divine Tower. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
In Caelid was one of the coolest, like kind of mini legacy dungeons for me, like the way you climb up on the outside and then you like go back down.
Yeah, that was fun.
And not only that, but I also found like the solo Godskin Apostle to be a really enjoyable fight. So that was kind of
on solo.
Yeah, because we'll get to actually the
foreskin apostle.
Yeah, right. We talked actually quite a bit about just like the world and stuff at this point. Does anyone have anything else that they want to talk about? We didn't really talk about Torrent, but I mean Torrent just kind of is.
Torrent's
what
a
it
good
is.
addition.
Yeah.
But the only thing I wanted to say was I like how specifically with the underworld and all the rivers, most of those elevators are really quick. The one in Mistwood, which is probably going to be the first one that people stumble across that leads down to Siofra, is like intentionally slower. And I watched like 3 different people play through that part, and every single one of them just went, "Oh shit!" Like as you're being presented with you see like glimpses of the Eternal City and Mogwin Palace, and then it just keeps going and going and going. You're like, "Oh my god!" I just loved that.
And then you unlock the map for down there and realize that like half the game world is underground.
Yeah,
that's one of those moments where you're like, holy shit, this game is massive. The other one is coming out of Stormvale and seeing Liurnia and Raya Lucaria and just being like, I'm looking at an area that's literally 2 times the size of everything I've seen so far.
the trapped chest that takes you all the way to Leandel from Limgrave, where it's like, oh, by the way, this is huge.
That's literally
and
just Miyazaki whipping his cock out and just being like, what do you think about this?
That's a little slap over the pants just to let you know what's coming.
See you in 80 hours.
Exactly. Holy shit. Dude, I thought I had been teleported all the way across the map when I got teleported to Caelid. And then I got teleported to Leandel, and I was like, what?
Because we had that conversation because I was like, oh, I just got teleported all the way to the north, and that was before I went to Leandel.
Yeah.
And then I was like 1/3 of the way up.
Right.
So I was actually curious about like the world size thing. I haven't played a ton of New Game Plus, but I've put 208 hours into the game. Like, that's insane. I have not played a game with that many hours of actual content in forever. Well, besides like Skyrim, but
one thing I do want to mention before we're done with the locations, the Carrion Study Hall. I really like maps that will either like completely change the environment if you like just flip a switch somewhere, or it flips it entirely upside down. Like the reason why I like Carrion Study Hall is like the same reason I like the Dishonored 2 Clockwork Mansion. Like it's it's the same vein of like the entire environment like completely changing. It's very conservative in like how it designs its levels. And I think it's just a really clever way of handling that. But yeah, it's a cool area. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I didn't like the enemy there. Miriam or whatever.
He was a dickhead. No, make no mistake. I'm not talking about him, but like the actual environment I thought was cool as hell. So
yeah, no, I agree. That's a cool moment when you come back in and it's been like totally inverted. Yeah.
Pre-cummer Miriam.
Pre-cummer Miriam.
Yeah, I call them pre-cummer Meridian.
Yeah, that's what you called it the first time, and I was like, I had also just recently been there, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I was like, what is he talking about?
I fought that like under-leveled too, and by the end of the game I kind of realized that like under-leveled and over-leveled weren't as much of a factor as I thought based off of the damage increase you get between levels, but you definitely feel it in terms of like smithing stones at least, and just general experience.
I think too that area, specifically the Carrion Study Hall, is like scaled to where they thought you would be at in Ranni's questline at that point.
Because even though it's just right along your path in Liurnia, which is pretty early on.
Right. It's way harder though than just like the overworld of Liurnia.
I completely missed her. I still managed to finish that quest, but like at the very beginning at the church, I completely missed when she's like sitting there.
Wait, so you didn't get the spirit calling bell?
No, you still get it.
Oh, you
like,
do?
You don't
okay.
Get it from like her directly. I can't remember where you get it actually.
You get it at the Round Table Hold. The shop has it.
Oh shit! Severe thunderstorm warning. With
I just got that too.
No.
Sounds like Britta might be going down to the basement. Fuck, man.
Guess I'll die. Cool.
Apparently, it's going to be like strong winds, but I don't think we have a tornado heading for us.
Okay, so if we see like plywood flying through your window, are you by a window?
I'm pretty close to a
Are you
window.
by
Yeah.
plywood?
Okay, yeah, you might. Yeah, no, you're good. You're fine. So, oh yeah. Either way, we're basically done with like the overworld, right? Do we want to talk about like bosses a little bit, or?
Yeah, that was what I was gonna go into next. I guess like let's just start with what were your favorite bosses? I'm curious what everyone has to say.
I mean, I'm gonna give the most basic bitch answer and say Margit, just because everyone likes Margit. Well, except for the people that got a reality check and stopped playing the game at Margit. They probably don't like him that much, but I
He
think
probably
everyone
saved him a
else
lot of
does.
time.
Yeah, saved him from reaching Molina.
Maybe money if they got there in 2 hours.
I can't imagine anybody that wasn't able to beat Margit.
That's true. That's true.
Hours.
Guys, it looks like I'm reading a little bit about the weather. It's probably not a good idea for me to be up here.
Yeah, I honestly, I hate to pull the plug on this.
It ends at like 8:30, so that's like 20 minutes from now. Do you mind if I just dip out briefly?
Well, if you go, I'm probably gonna go too. To be
Okay.
honest, because I'm on the 3rd floor next to a window. So,
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
there we go.
be
The
safe.
sirens are going off. All right, I should go. Hey, I might. I won't go back live because Parker's got to do something. Well, fuck. This is a bummer, but yeah, I want
Can we
to
reschedule?
preserve
reschedule?
my life. Yeah, we can talk about it later. Yeah. Sorry guys. I hate to do this, but I'm gonna have to just cut off the stream here so I don't die. Yeah. So I did die, obviously. This happened about a month ago, and I spent about 45 minutes in the basement of my apartment that night, and nothing happened, but better safe than sorry, I guess. We did not finish the podcast that night, and in fact, I was out of town the next weekend, and then I just was having trouble getting all my friends together and available at the same time, and it was practically a month before we got back together to finish this episode, but I figured I would just stitch the two together. We kind of picked up the conversation right where we left off and got through the rest of the points we wanted to talk on. So I think this kind of works as one sort of scuffed, stitched together episode. I think we pretty much hit all of our Elden Ring talking points. I hope you guys still enjoy because I risked life and limb during a tornado to bring this to you. Nah, I'm just kidding. Anyways, enjoy the conversation. Yo, welcome back to still the same episode of Sweatlords podcast, just continued a month later. This time, the sun is shining. I don't think I'm in any imminent danger of a tornado canceling this podcast. Garrett's house burned down. It's very sad, but
I'm outside.
luckily
right
he
now.
was able to join
I
us still
forgot
today.
that was why we had to stop.
Yeah, we made it about 50 minutes in, and then the sirens started blowing, and the rest is history. Woo. Yeah, I sat down like in the like parking garage, like the underground parking of our apartment for like 45 minutes after that, and then I came back and I was like, there's no point even trying to salvage anything. No reason to go live again. And then I just was busy. I was out of town. I did like a charity thing on the stream last week, and then finally this week, almost a month later, I was like, hey, you guys want to do the thing that we never finished? So yeah, here we are. We got same crew: Parker, Garrett, Zach, and I think we're gonna just like jump back into it and not like retread old ground here. Although we might. I don't remember exactly what we touched on and what we didn't. But yeah, I think we talked a bit about just like the world and the open world of Elden Ring. So we'll probably gloss over that for the most part and then get into the other stuff. But first, I wanted to share something very special that I generated today that I think this podcast will appreciate. I was doing some messing around. Hang on, let me change the scene here. I was doing some messing around with one of these AI. I don't know if you guys have the stream up.
Hold on.
But this was Shrek as Smo of Ornstein and Smo. only about 2 of them worked out, but these top 2 kind of go hard. Not gonna lie.
Oh my god.
This one is just a
really
picture of Shrek.
Uncool.
It's like it almost got there. And this one is like, it looks like Ornstein, nothing personal, kidded Shrek and cut his head off. And that's about all I got for that one. I did also Shrek is the Godskin duo, which just unsurprisingly,
They're so happy to be together.
yeah, it unsurprisingly generated mostly just pictures of 2 Shreks. This one kind of goes hard though. Like I wouldn't fuck with this Shrek duo here.
Ugh.
I think that was
The one beneath that on the right is.
There's something. This is like you're witnessing the Godskin Apostle going slinky mode right here. Caught in the act.
Kind of ignored all the Elden Ring terminology though.
Yeah, it did. It kind of did for this too. It almost got Ornstein a couple times, but otherwise it's mainly just pictures of Shrek. So yeah,
makes me wonder if the data it's used to generate those images has anything related to Elden Ring, or if that's too like recent.
Yeah, I don't know. You would think Elden Ring would be pretty popular in like image searches, but I don't know like what kind of data that AI was trained on. It clearly like knew Dark Souls and Elden Ring, but like it wasn't quite there. I also tried, this one wasn't even worth sharing, but I tried Quandale Dingle in Bloodborne, and it ended up just producing Bloodborne screenshots. Basically, it didn't have enough Quandale Dingle data to be
Quandale Dingle's already in Bloodborne, so it's
yeah,
just regular pictures.
My favorite boss. Anyways, yeah, like I said, I think last we left off, we were talking about just our general thoughts on the open world and the areas of Elden Ring. I don't know. I don't really remember exactly where we left off because I had Britta texting me that we needed to go to the basement and sirens going off, and I just like all of a sudden
bosses.
I think we were about to transition into bosses. I don't know. I guess I don't know how we want to kick this conversation off, but the bosses in this game have been kind of a hotly contested subject in a lot of ways. I don't know. I would imagine, just based on what we've talked about in the past, like on Discord and stuff, that everyone here feels generally positively about them. But I would imagine the opinions kind of differ across the board too, because we all have like different levels of experience. I pretty much liked them across the board. There were a few I didn't like, but I liked most of them. And but my frame of reference too is like, it's Dark Souls 1 basically, and now a little bit of Bloodborne, but around the time that I was finishing Elden Ring, almost no Bloodborne experience. But my opinion was that I pretty much liked all of them, but again, like comparing them to Dark Souls 1 bosses is like, it's like night and day. I mean, there's the Dark Souls 1 bosses are slow. A lot of them are like super gimmicky. There are a lot of good ones for that game, but just like they're so different that it's like, you know, I just was like I was very impressed by the Elden Ring bosses and how much more kind of like robust they were than Dark Souls 1. But I'm curious what you guys think, like overall, if you liked them or if they were.
They've had like 5 or 6 games to try to perfect the formula.
Totally.
Because a lot of criticism is always thrown at Souls games because people say like, oh, it's the same game over and over. And to some extent, it would be weird if they didn't reuse at least some of the stuff that they have from their previous games.
Yeah.
I never felt like bosses were really what they were reusing though. Like you could draw like similarities between, and I haven't played Dark Souls 3, but I at least am aware of the Nameless King, and I know a lot of people were comparing Margit to the Nameless King, which I think is fair based on what I've seen, because he's got the really like slow kind of wind ups and the tense sort of neutral game. But yeah, I don't see as much like reuse in that department. I guess you could point to like the Erdtree avatars as being like pretty clearly just the Asylum demon.
Sure, and there's some like smaller enemies that you could draw parallels between the same animations and I'm pretty sure the skeletons that are in Elden Ring are like the exact same ones you'll find in Dark Souls 3.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, the world enemies are reused a lot. Like
Yeah,
there's very few
I
probably
I don't know.
actually new
I
ones.
never
but
personally had like a huge issue with that.
Nah.
Fuck dual bosses. I don't think that's
Yes.
controversial at all. But what the fuck?
Okay, so Zach won't have an opinion on this, but for sure, like Garrett and Parker will. Do you guys like Ornstein and Smo and the Bell Gargoyles, or do you not generally care for those?
I don't
It's weird
remember
becau-
struggling very much with the Bell Gargoyles, but I could be completely remembering that wrong.
By
Ornstein
just,
and
like-
Smo, though, definitely sucked.
By just pure time
It's a fun
investment,
fight.
I think the Bell Gargoyles were the hardest boss in the game for me, but I was also like trying to figure out the
Really?
mechanics on the fly, and like like I was fat rolling for half of the time I attempted them, and like I just wasn't getting it. But
the difficulty.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
The difficulty
it
of
is.
a boss is usually closely tied to the amount of real estate you have to navigate as well, or
Yeah.
if you have something to block enemies from like catching up to you as easily. Because the thing with Ornstein and Smo is at the very least you're in a very large room and you have all the individual pillars to cover up the enemies that
oh
are
yeah,
trying
for
to
sure.
follow you.
They also have a big difference in their speed, which means you can separate them by
Yeah.
moving around.
Yeah.
Whereas
So
if
to some extent, you're given like a little bit more leeway,
Yeah.
but with the gargoyles, it's a much skinnier environment. And I felt severe pain when I watched you play that.
Oh, I'm sure.
well, they're both the same enemy, so they're
Because
both going
I-
to be on you at the
They're,
same
they're
time.
actually
I
no, the Bell
distinctly
Gargoyles
remember-
aren't. They're different, but
I
Are they?
distinctly
I don't
remember
remember
having a
that,
lot of
but-
trouble with Bell Gargoyles when I first played Dark Souls. But once again, I feel like my opinion of Dark Souls would be different now if I was to play it again, because this is after
Yeah.
playing like every other Souls game, and then if I came back to it now, I'm sure I could still get used to it. But like, there's a lot of nice things that they've added to the subsequent games that like I wouldn't be able to shake.
yeah.
Just going back to Dark Souls 3 was like there's less differences there than between that and like Dark Souls obviously from Elden Ring, but like it felt really, really weird and slow and clunky. It's hard to go back after you've played the new one, which is a good sign that they're improving, but
Oh yeah,
it's,
for sure.
I think they
It's
made
not
a
like-
lot of character controller changes after Sekiro. I mean, like you play that game and it feels it feels a lot more fluid than
Yeah.
like the original Dark Souls for sure.
That game's just
Um,
super fast paced in
but
general, so
One,
it-
one thing I wanted to mention about the dual bosses, at least in Elden Ring, I think the reason why it bothers me a lot is it's almost like a time trial for how quickly can you kill the first boss.
Yeah,
before the next one
DPS
shows up.
check.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
If
I
you're
don't
lucky
know,
enough
it's
that they
not-
don't even spawn at the same time.
right.
And some bosses don't really matter that much because at some point you reach some of them that are like dual fights, and you're already like super over leveled for it. Like the grand majority of people reaching that boss will be able to complete it pretty easily just because you're over leveled. I distinctly remember having a lot of trouble with what was it? In Caelid, the actual boss room right before Radon. There's the dual
Oh,
boss
yeah.
fight there.
Yeah, there's
Um,
a Crucible Knight and then a Misbegotten.
Yeah.
Yes, I had so much fucking trouble with that fight that I had to like completely leave and come back. And I distinctly, it was the weird part is I don't know if this happens like in the main quest or something, but like I feel like I was able to beat Radon before I came back to that fight. Like it disabled the fight for like story stuff to happen.
You have to
Um,
talk to you have to beat Radon, and then you have to talk to what's his name? The guy with the pointy hat.
Witch Hunter, dude.
Yeah, I don't remember his name, but
and then the boss fight comes back or something.
yeah, and then everyone leaves Castle Redmane and it spawns you back out front, and then you can go and do the like.
Okay.
Yeah, but I
Got
think a lot of people didn't know that because I never fought the
didn't know
Crucible
that.
and Misbegotten, and by the time I could have, I was way past that point in the game, and I was like, I don't want to go all the way back there just to full clear Redmane Castle for a shitty boss fight, basically.
And I know it's not like a super spicy opinion to not like dual boss fights, but it does feel there's a lot of bosses in Souls games where it feels like they're actively encouraging you to use the like summoning or like
Mhm.
use multiplayer and stuff.
Mhm.
It-
And yeah, you should have the option to do both, right? Like they should be like fair to some extent, like being able to beat those types of bosses in a
Yeah,
single player experience. But
for sure.
I don't
I
know.
feel like
I
it's
don't know.
no coincidence that in Nokron they give you the mimic tier and then throw one of the hardest duo bosses at you like almost immediately after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it crossed my mind as you were saying that, Garrett. I was curious how you feel about Shadows of Yarnum.
Shadows of Yarnum.
It's like the three
let me
hooded
try-
guys in the forest in Bloodborne.
Shadows of Yarn. Oh, in the forest? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I might have gave up trying to beat that single player. I distinctly remember
Really?
Summoning for that one.
Oh
Yeah.
my god. I
remember having
I
trouble
found
with
that
it.
one to actually be pretty fair for a gank fight, but it is like
Yeah.
there is kind of like
it
a
felt
process
slower,
of
which-
there's like a process of elimination sort of where I could see that like if you just rush down like the range guy, then you would get like you would end up in a bad situation because then the two like aggressive swordsmen would just kill you. But if you kill the most aggressive like katana guy first, then the fight becomes very manageable, which is interesting because it's almost counterintuitive. But
my
yeah.
memories is getting frustrated in the forest leading up to the boss fight, and by the time I was at the boss fight, I wasn't really having as much fun.
Yeah, the
So-
forest sucks. I'll be the first to say that it's such a long area, and it's one of the most brutal Souls areas I've ever had to do.
It's also like one of the hotbeds for getting invaded too if you're playing online.
Yeah.
That's fun. Just trying to run to the boss room and then having to deal with that was a time. But
Yeah, I liked some of the visual design of the forest, but I did not enjoy my time. I did not enjoy my stay. But
I like some aspects of it. I like creepy forests in games, but like visually I really enjoy that area. But yes, there are some enemy placements there, like tall grass and weird snake piles.
yeah, exactly.
Place them everywhere. Copy paste.
But anyways, we don't have to talk about Bloodborne. I just was curious because no, it's all right. Shadows of Yarnum was one that came to mind as like not being too bad of an example. But I actually kind of like both the Bell Gargoyles and Ornstein and Smo. But yeah, they're pretty painful to figure out for the first time at least. But yeah, like the ones in Elden Ring generally suck. I didn't honestly hate the gargoyle fight in Elden Ring. It was one of the hardest bosses in the game for me, but I kind of enjoyed fighting the gargoyles like individually. And then the real problem was the poison, which it honestly feels like someone was saying that it felt like a glitch. Like it almost feels like it's not supposed to do as much tick damage as it does. And I totally agree with that. It's like it feels very overtuned. Also, I apologize. I need to fix my webcam. You guys keep talking, but I gotta change my scene.
It staggers so easily too that like I think the worst part was once you were in it, it was so hard to get out of it. And it was huge. Like there's no way to kind of avoid it. It was like you're either getting hit by it or you noticed that he was winding up the animation like 30 seconds ago and got out of there.
Yeah.
Kind of fucked.
Well, and when it's just like, especially when they're both out and one of them, the one you're not paying attention to is doing it, you like can't see the stuff on the ground. It's very hard to read like where it's like where the edges of it are basically. But that otherwise, I thought those two enemies were pretty fair to fight together because they would almost never attack at the same time, for me at least. And I mean, it was like a top 3 hard boss fight in the game for me. I think it was straight up like it was Margit, Melania, and the Bell Gargoyles, the Valiant Gargoyles. But I still thought that the fight was all right. And really the only reason I struggled with it so much was because I was too stubborn to just like walk away and come back when I had leveled up a bunch. So I kind of did it to myself. But the only thing I thought was like a little too far was the poison for the most part. However, Godskin Duo fucking sucks. That shit fucking sucked.
I like their room. Like the actual arena.
Yeah, it's basically a direct callback to Ornstein and Smo.
Yeah.
And I actually
like
think
how you can wander into it without knowing it's a boss room. That was very fun.
Oh,
So I had a little problem with that too, where like I didn't know about that grace at the bottom of the stairs, so I was running past like the 4 banished knights to get there every single time I fought them.
Ooh.
Yeah, I did that too.
I will say though that I didn't think that the Godskin duo was all that hard. I fought them solo and it maybe took me like an hour or two. It was very frustrating. It's just an annoying fight. Like you just have to kite them around and just wait for like your tiny little windows. But
That fucking roll move the fat one does. The noble.
the noble's the
it-
fat one.
Yeah, because I swear to God, he just does it until he hits you. Like it lasts so fucking long.
He
And you can
does
try to get him
pretty
stuck
much.
behind a pillar or something, and he'll just sit there and rev his engine. It's
The worst
crazy how
thing
long he does it.
The worst thing about catching him on the pillar too is that sometimes he'll just randomly roll over it. I don't know if you ever experienced that where he just went over the top of like the crushed pillar. I actually think that without that move, that fight would be way more manageable. I think that's by far the worst part of that fight is having to like constantly be aware of the noble's position and whether or not he's gearing up to do that roll move. I actually find the apostle quite fun to fight. I think that's actually one of the best bosses in the game alone. Noble on his own is not terrible, but there is like some weird like hitboxes with his little like jab attacks. And then the roll move is just bullshit. Like
And enemies with like long stabs, like rapiers and spears and shit in general, I swear to God, like they're all like 3 feet longer than the actual model. I get hit by so many attacks that like I swear should not be hitting me when they stab. Maybe it's just a perspective thing because you're like looking from behind, but even just like the regular spear soldiers, a lot of the time I'm like, how the hell did that connect with me? But I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know if it's a game or if it's just me.
I think it's got maybe something to do with the fact that it's got a lingering hitbox, at least for the spears, because you can take multiple ticks of damage as they're kind of like running through you.
Yeah.
It's so hard to parry spears too.
Oh yeah. Because the
Some
classic
people
trick
can
of
do
like
it,
as soon as the
yeah.
elbow starts to go down, you hit it doesn't really work with that. Yeah. But I think like I'm trying to think of other bosses that I didn't like because I liked most of them. I think,
got a great one for you.
Yeah.
So this is, if you count all of them, including the one unique one, this is the boss that I died to more than Melania.
Oh.
And it's Elmer of the Briar or the Bell-Bearing Hunters.
Oh, you know what? You know what's funny? I didn't really have trouble with them, but someone else said basically the same thing to me. I guess like at some point it's just going to depend on how you fight them and like what your build is. But I found that just like getting up in their face and just whacking them was the way to do it. That one in Kaled is tough though because it like at like 60 vigor it will
so
two-shot you
much
somehow.
And does way too much fucking damage. I don't understand. And I mean, once you understand that if you're fighting at mid-range, you're in trouble because of that like teleporting sword attack, then it becomes more manageable. But it's just the pacing of the swings. I could never figure it out.
Yeah.
And it screwed me over way too many times.
Yeah, and then Elmer of the Briar, like there is only close and mid-range because he's in a tiny room.
It's a super tiny room and it just sucks.
I think I was over-leveled by the time I got to him, which is why I didn't really have too much trouble with him. But yeah, I thought those enemies were cool, but I was lucky enough to not really struggle with them for the most part. Other than a couple just like...
I made the mistake of reading chat. I lost focus there. What were we talking about?
Yeah, Flippy arrived
Hunters.
and chat went off the rails.
The who? Who?
There, so you know how there's certain enemies that only show up at night, which is another super fucking frustrating mechanic.
I kind of like that, but
I think it was their
if you die to
replacement
it.
for like kind of NPC invaders that only show up when you're like kindled or whatever. Like it was kind of the
I never thought
way
about
of
it that
having
way.
like
Thematically, yeah, I like that. But like, if it didn't progress time when you died, like having to sit back down at a site of grace.
Oh yeah,
and
go
then,
back to the site of grace
and then refresh, and then
s'mores.
it's just too much effort.
There's definitely a better way to do that, where like you spawn and the boss is still there.
Having to sit down twice to respawn the boss is bullshit for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I kind of liked fighting the Knights Cavalry and the Deathbirds, but
Oh, those are great.
What kind of sucks about those is like maybe other than the Night Cavalry because there's so many, is the Deathbirds like are very easy to miss. Like I missed them until like I saw people talking about them, and then I looked up where they were and went to fight some of them.
The one thing that made the Deathbirds a lot more manageable is just switching to like one of those pure holy weapons, and then you just do insane amounts of damage to them. But who's the guy that makes his sword float around? I always forget his name.
That is Elmer of the Briar, who is the same
that
as
is
the
Elmer Fudd of the Briar.
same as the Bell-bearing Hunters.
I think it took me like 20 tries to get him to spawn. Like he would not spawn. I waited until night like 50 times.
Okay, no. Elmer of the Briar is the one in the shaded castle, like the poison swamp castle.
Yeah, green place in the north.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but he's the same.
But he's not a night only thing.
No.
But he's the same.
He has like a broom and a fog wall and everything.
Him. In New Game Plus, somebody like told me about the other one that spawns where the guy that sells weapon arts or whatever, weapon ashes is. And I couldn't get him to spawn. I had to come back like 10 times and sit at a site of grace like over and over and over again, and then keep coming back. And it took him like 50 attempts to get him even. Fortunately, I got on my first try because everything's super easy early game, New Game Plus, but it was really frustrating because even though I knew how to make him spawn, I couldn't do it.
Huh. Yeah.
Which explains why he never showed up in my first game.
Like, that first one might be tied to getting Bernal to move, who's that guy that you buy the ashes from.
Yeah.
That's the same dude that shows up at the Volcano Manor, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he does. I never fought that Bell-bearing Hunter, so I'm not sure, but you might be right about that.
Well, I didn't do anything else to trigger him. All I did was keep on like resting at grace until night, and then I'd waited until night again, and then wait till night again, and then he just finally showed up. So
weird.
It wasn't even consistent. Yeah.
It's buggy.
I do, just to sound off on the Bell-bearing Hunters, I do kind of like they have a unique moveset that I'd never seen really in that game, and I liked that. Like it's strange that like an enemy would actually be relatively vulnerable at close range and kind of like hard to deal with at mid range, which is where you want to be for most bosses because a lot of them have gap closers. So I thought that was interesting, but I didn't also struggle with them, and I might have felt differently about them if I had ever like really struggled with them. So I
think couldn't get the time.
One easy mistake to make fighting them is if like they have their sword out and you like rush in thinking like, oh, I'm just gonna he's disarmed, he's over there with nothing, and then you can't even see where his sword is behind you anymore, and you go into an attack and then he smacks you in the back with it. So he punishes you really well for being like overly aggressive, but otherwise I thought he was fun. I like how closely his hand movements, like you can figure out what the sword's gonna do, even though he's not holding it, so you don't really have to like watch both. You can kind of just watch him.
You can get that weapon too. It's pretty hidden, but you can get it, and it kind of sucks, but it has the drill move that he does, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't even remember where I got it, but unfortunately, you can't do nearly as much cool stuff as he does for obvious reasons. But
it's kind of like
bosses though.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I never tried it beyond just like checking out what the weapon art was like, but it's kind of like, and this is a good transition into another boss actually. It's kind of like how you leave the arena and the Serpent Hunter spear stops doing its little magic jizz thing. So how do you guys feel? I'm actually just gonna go over quick, I think, a few other like bosses that I didn't really particularly like, but a lot of people like Rykard, and I was down with the spectacle, just didn't really find the fight fun personally, but I don't know, how did you guys feel about Rykard?
I'm the same. I thought he was really, really cool, not to fight, but as like an entity in the game. And fighting him was kind of a chore.
Rykard suffers from the same problem that Dark Souls 3, the giant, suffers.
Oh, Yorm.
It's the same gimmick.
He's definitely like more interesting gimmick-wise than Yorm, from what I know. Because with Yorm, it's just like you have just like one attack that's effective against him, basically, right?
And just getting a weapon that like just makes it very, very easy to cheese. sucks out a lot of the challenge.
You
I
can
understand
pretty much
there's,
just
like, a
stun
lore
lock
element to
Riker
it.
to
I'm
death.
not gonna lie, I still struggled with Rykard. I probably went like I mean all in all it was maybe like an hour and a half of like attempts, and at one point it was because I had shit strength scaling. I was doing almost no damage with the Serpent Hunter, which is kind of annoying that like can even be a thing at all. So I had to go and upgrade it to even like be effective against him after like trying for like 30 minutes and being like, why the fuck doesn't this thing do any damage? And then after that point, I just was like I couldn't get the timing down, and especially I kept dying to his skull attack. And then in like that towards the end of phase 2, he starts mixing in the like serpent attacks with like his normal sword attacks, which I thought was super cool. But every time I was not ready for it, and I would just die. So I actually struggled with that fight, but I've seen some people say that it's the easiest main boss in the game, and I was like,
the reason being is like when you're using the one weapon, I can't remember the actual name of the
So I think Serpent Hunter Spear.
yeah, it's Serpent Hunter
when you're
Spear.
using the
Isn't it?
Serpent
Pretty
Hunter
generic.
Spear, and it's got the stagger. Like you're supposed to time it right after the like the animation is done where the serpent is staggered. So
Yeah, so that's
there's like
I
an
wasn't doing
exact
that.
moment. Yeah, and that's a problem because if you either do it too early or too late, it will attack and just fucking destroy you, even in like the first phase.
I think they actually fixed it though, and this was after I fought, so I can't even blame my struggles on that. But I think they fixed it where you could stun lock him. Like I think being able to stun lock him was not the intended mechanic.
Shit. Okay, well maybe that fight's going to be a lot more challenging now.
Yeah, I mean, like I personally I found the timing of especially his sword attacks to be a little evil, because he kind of has like some really like weird like stuttered attacks.
He drags it against the ground.
Yeah, and then the skull attack is just like time to run around the arena for a full minute. Like
there's a few attacks like that from different bosses across like all the Souls games where I'm like, all I'm gonna do is run away from the boss and then like try to look at the sky and like spin my camera around, turn up your look sensitivity so you can actually find them all.
Yeah.
Like they're usually not very fun.
In hindsight, though, I can kind of admire that fight because, like, I'm like, in my ideal world, like, what would they have done? Just put like another like Godfrey there with slightly different attacks. I'm like, yeah, maybe I would have enjoyed that more. But I'm like,
two Rykards.
Just get rid of the lava, and then you can approach
duo.
it normally.
That is my biggest issue, I think, was that like I was already frustrated before I even like got into like the main part of the fight, because I wasn't happy that they kind of took like autonomy away from me. And I didn't enjoy using a weapon that was not like suited for my build. And I just wish that like I had more freedom to approach the fight how I wanted. And so the lava was probably the worst part of the fight for me.
It was funny reading about people that like everything they did to overcome it. People like, oh yeah, I beat him with daggers using like this, and like this fire resistance, and it like damn, I didn't think it would, like, I figured it's possible, but I'm not that stubborn. Like I tried to fight him without the spear just to be like kind of petulant, like, oh, I'm gonna actually beat him normal. And after like 5 tries, I was like, all right, cool. So if I get within 10 feet of him, I just burn to death. And it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Some people, they really enjoy butting their heads against things.
I think that boss would have been a little bit more manageable for people who weren't using the spear if they had like an intermittent lava that came out of the snake or whatever, as opposed to just perpetually being there.
Yeah, I can see that. So you would have to like find the windows and
Yeah, like it's like any other area of effect attack. Like there's plenty of instances where you're not supposed to be like right under the boss at all times because they're going to have an attack that pushes you out. So that might have made it a little bit more dynamic of a fight for people who weren't utilizing the spear. But I don't know, because at the end of the day, it should be about player choice and how they want to engage a challenge. And I know a lot of people just opt into using the spear, like as I did, because I was a mage at the time. So it's like there's no fucking way.
If there's one thing though that I've learned from just like the way that the internet has responded to that fight, it's that I'm wrong. I guess people do want stuff like that because I didn't really enjoy it, but it's a lot of people's favorite boss even.
Really?
Along with Radon, apparently, which was another one that I didn't really love. I didn't hate it, but
I absolutely loved my first attempt on Radon, and it wore off very quickly. Like when I was summoning, like spawning everyone in, and like all of a sudden there's like a swarm of us running up. I was like, yeah, this is kind of sick. And then 30 tries later, I was like, can I just fight him? Like, do we have to do all this?
I would
You don't
like
have to do it all.
I didn't quite
I
get
also
to.
nerfed him after I beat him. So
They actually unnerfed him, by the way. Not completely, but I think what they did was they changed.
I heard he got too easy. Yeah.
They changed his hitboxes and his damage and his health, but they reverted the damage and health nerf. So now it's just like it's a little bit harder to get hit by his like big spinning attacks. But I don't know. I think that at this point, the general consensus is that he's at a good spot. But I fought him pre-nerf, and then I have not been back. But I would like to try and solo him because it was the only fight, actually one of 2 fights in the game that I did with summoning. But that fight is so designed around the summoning that like I tried it solo a couple times and I just was like, this is clearly just what I'm supposed to do.
Did
Like,
you see what
my
happens
ass
when you summon Patches?
yeah, he fucks off. Like
he just watches for a while from behind his shield and then teleports out. I love that.
Sorry, what did you say, Zach?
I was gonna say in New Game Plus. So the first time I fought Radon, I did 2 things. 1, fought him during his nerf, and then 2, I had a friend who just really liked that fight, and he's like, "Well, if you don't mind, I'll hop on for your first go through." And he wasn't too much higher level than I was, but we still like clapped him in one try, and I was like, "Wow, that was kind of underwhelming." So I was excited to go back in New Game Plus and fight him, and I did try to do it without summons, and that took me like a good 10 to 15 tries, even with like all the buffed gear. So the fight is definitely kind of centered around the summoning.
Yeah.
It was still pretty fun, but definitely more challenging.
I think it seems like after the nerf and then subsequent buff, it seems like he's at a good spot now, because I think the consensus was he was too hard to solo before, and then he was too easy. He was probably fine for solo, but he was too easy with summoning after. And so I think he's probably at an okay spot now for both. But yeah, I don't know. I just was like you look at like, first of all, the size of him, and it's like it's very awkward to like get right up under him and attack him. He's just a little too big.
So mobile.
And he's mobile.
Yeah, he's super fast.
And then his attacks, like, they are dodgeable, but like, especially the big spinning attacks are like, it kind of feels like crowd control attacks, like not attacks that were really meant to be dodged, like with rolling and stuff.
His gravity ball things, I don't know if they still are, but they were pretty much a one shot unless you had put all of your fucking points into vitality up until that point.
Yeah.
So, and those were really hard to dodge because they'd come from behind you or something.
I just kind of my thought about that fight when I did it with summoning was that I was not fighting Radon. The Radon fight was happening to me. Like, it just felt it felt so random. Like, you know, he would aggro on random people. He would spin around, and like I would just randomly get clipped by his sword. And I was like, I want to fight him solo, but I know that if I go that route, especially because this was pre-nerf Radon, I was like, I'm just signing up for a world of pain, and like I don't know.
It's a railroaded story fight, like more so than some of the.
It is a cool fight, like visually.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying like there's anything wrong with that aspect, but in terms of like the control you have in engaging it, I guess like, you know, you don't have to summon anybody, which is cool, but yeah, I don't know. I thought Radon was okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you don't have to summon Rogier to fight Margit, but you don't have to technically summon anyone in the Radon fight. But saying you don't have to summon anyone in that fight is a little different than every other boss where summoning is available.
I will say the oh shit moment of like when Radon goes up in the air.
Oh, that's crazy!
Stops,
Yeah,
he does the bell strikes.
It's so funny.
The first time you experience that is incredible.
Everything about
in, like the fucking challenger.
Everything about that fight, other than like the actual fight, is great. Like him on his like hovering above his tiny horse, like
All of his lore is really cool too.
He's like the only boss I've ever seen that has like a narrated cutscene, like which I was like, it was very jarring because I'm like, I've never seen anything like this in a Souls game before, but it's cool. Like I liked the intro to him. It built him up as like a very interesting character.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say I hated it, but like it's not like a fun fight for me. It's like it's cool, but it's not fun. Like, yeah.
Oh god! And then I tried to
like to run
explore
up
the
to,
area after
Radon.
beating him, and it's so big and empty that
There's only
apparently some
like
stuff I
one thing
missed
in there. There's like a dungeon,
Yeah.
and it's a terrible dungeon.
Sucks.
It's terrible.
I didn't find it. I tried to search the whole area, and then I was like, I'm gonna shoot myself if I keep riding
is
in
that-
circles around this massive fucking desert.
Is that the
so-
one with the tree spirit in it?
It's got the tree spirit, but more importantly, it has the never-ending spawns of knights,
Yep.
and most of them are like clean rot knights and
Yeah.
heavy
Yeah, but you can just
Lindell.
run. You can just run through there, can't you?
You're definitely
can.
supposed to. I feel like you're supposed to run through it, but they fight each other, which I think is kind of the cue that you're supposed to just run through. But some of them
Yeah,
don't. Some
that's-
of them come after you.
There's also 2 treasure chests though, like under that starting area, which is in Scarlet Rot, mind you.
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that
So-
dungeon's pain.
what
You didn't
would-
miss anything other than like probably what would be your 10th ulcerated tree spirit fight.
Here's something really
Yay.
important. I need to get the opinion of this, and I think I already know the answer. What's your thoughts on the tree spirit at the Halig tree?
Fuck that one.
You know the one that's
Oh.
in the incredibly tiny.
I cheesed it. I cheesed that fight with no remorse.
Yeah, I don't know why they ever thought that was like a good spot for fighting one of those, because like there is a huge problem with this game. Well, it's not a huge problem, but there are instances where you'll be fighting a boss that was not built for like a certain room size.
I don't think
Or
the
like,
tree spirits were built for any room. Like the way
Yeah,
they
well,
just
no,
kind of like glitch in and out and like wriggle
but,
around.
the
and
yeah.
ones at the Capitol, I can like forgive a little bit because there's
Yeah.
so much room.
That's fair.
Same thing goes with the one at it's near Mount Gelmir. There's another tree over there, but yeah, the one at the Halig tree was so unforgivable, especially considering you need to kill it in order to
Wait, are you-
progress one of the stories for what's her name?
Are
She's
you,
got the
are you
Millicent.
talking about tree spirits, or are you talking about the
Yeah,
the
ulcerated.
whatchamacallums?
Well, they're ulcerated tree spirits, and then they're putrid tree spirits.
Putrid tree spirits.
Yeah.
The snakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the
Oh,
snakes.
Well,
Yeah.
those are both snakes.
Okay.
Well, they're
right?
they're the same. They're
Are you
basically
were
the
you
same
thinking I was
enemy
talking about
with
the
just like
avatars?
some.
Yeah, no, because I just don't remember one of those being at the Halig tree.
Did you
which is why I
do
just wanted to be
Millicent's
sure
quest line? Because you might have missed it
I
if
know
you
what you're
didn't.
talking about. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you gotta fight it in the fucking.
In, like,
Yeah,
a
you know,
tiny-
it's actually
puddle
interesting
area.
that you say that because
I
I
hated
didn't
that
I
a
didn't
lot.
really struggle with. I think it took me like 2 tries. But I just got lucky or something. I don't know. But now that you say it, I'm like, yeah, wait, that is kind of bullshit.
It is such a tiny area to fight it, and then like all the recommendations are get it to spawn and then jump back across and then just like
Shoot
fling
it to
spells
death.
at it until it's
Yeah.
dead.
This is what really fucking grinds my gears about that. And there's a few quests that have this. Is if you're doing Millicent's quest, she talks so much about how she's going to help you, and then you help her by killing her sisters.
Yeah.
And then she leaves. You can't summon her for the
Yeah, that's
Malenia fight.
true. I didn't even think about that, like how she's not even really available for, but she does kind of like canonically, even though you could do them in the other order, she does kind of canonically die before the Malenia fight, technically.
Yeah, that's
Which
what
I think is
thought
the
was supposed to
implication
happen.
is that she didn't make it like to the Malenia fight. However, I missed
Yeah.
her originally at that spot in the Halig tree, so I killed Malenia and then I went back and did that, and so it was out of order for me. But I think the implication is that she died. She didn't make it all the way to Malenia. But still, like they could have just changed that
Yeah.
and made it so that she did.
You help her so many times, and every time you talk to her, she's like, "I can't wait to be of use to you.
Yeah.
I got my arm back. I can kill things." And then you help her one last time, and she's like, "Thanks. I'm gonna go now. That's it for me." Like, all right.
Sorry, I
What the
tried
hell?
to kill you in the swamp of Aeonia that one time.
Yeah. That was my first introduction to waterfowl, by the way, and I didn't know
Yeah.
that was the infamous waterfowl.
I don't even think I. Wait, did you have to do that for the quest?
No, she can just
Oh,
randomly spawn in
She's
the
an
swamp of
invader,
Aeonia
yeah.
as an invader, which caught me off guard. That was my first invasion. So
maybe
it's
I
like, what
did
the
go do
hell?
that
Wait, she doesn't do
after.
waterfowl there though,
She
right?
does, yeah,
She
she
does.
does. She can.
does?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Weird. I remember fighting her there, but like she never did that attack for some reason.
So everyone needs to have the experience of so the sword is not amazing. It's good, but it's not amazing. But Melania's remembrance weapon, just put that shit on and just rip a few waterfowls. It feels so good after you've been killed by it so
little
many times.
damage though.
Oh yeah,
That's the thing.
that's the problem is like it's terrible, but it just feels like
It's
so
solid in
satisfying to
PvP
actually
apparently,
do it.
but yeah.
Actually, I heard it could be parried in PvP, which is crazy.
Oh,
It can
jeez.
be. I
Yeah.
think it's apparently quite difficult, but I'm sure someone's going to figure out like when in the animation where it's
frame
consistent. and
perfect.
then- yeah.
The only other boss that crossed my mind on the like don't like list that I wanted. Oh, two actually. I have two. But we can kind of breeze through these. But one being the fire giant, and the other being Commander Nile. Fuck.
I warmed up to the fire giant. I actually kind of like
I'm of two minds with the fire giant. Let's talk about Nile first, because Nile for me was the worst boss in the game. I actually hated him so much. Because like, and it's not even him, because his fight is actually kind of cool. Like I like all the lightning moves, and like he has kind of a cool like visual design. I don't like his fucking knights.
Yeah.
He didn't need it. Yeah.
You actually want to keep them alive. There's at least there's one strategy to just keep them alive because
Well, you could
he
bewitching branch
won't-
them.
Oh yeah.
You can use the bewitching branch on one of his
It's one of
knights,
the
and then
many
they just
items
kill
I
each
never
other.
use.
I didn't realize that was a thing.
But yeah, you just keep him alive, and then he doesn't do his like normal attacks
Yeah.
very often, at least until they're dead.
I mean, the real problem with that strat, though, unless there's like a specific cheese, is that like they're worse than him. Especially the like dual swordsman one is way worse, way more aggressive than Nile.
He's got a combo that lasts like 90 seconds. It's always my favorite.
And like it got to the point where like my strat was, until I just summoned. By the way, this was the other fight in the game that I summoned for. I just like I went from +0 on the mimic tier to +10 just for that fight, and then I never used it again. But my strat was to kill the dual swordsman like as fast as possible. If I couldn't stun lock him and then kill him immediately, it was basically over, because he would just rush me down with that like gap closing attack that lasts for like 10 fucking seconds of him just spinning around and whipping his swords around with like wind and AoEs and shit. The shield guy's not as bad, but he is still annoying and can absolutely fuck your day up. But yeah, that was like, it was like the Capra Demon for me. It's not as bad as the Capra Demon, because the arena is like, it's just a circle, you know, it's just a normal arena. But fuck, man, like it's like the Capra Demon did not need those fucking dogs. That fight did not need those two knights.
And that fight also really didn't need the like vines and shit on the walls that your camera clips through, and then you can't fucking see anything.
I don't know that I ever ended up having that happen, but and then
really, that's a pretty famous issue with the fight is the camera.
Oh wait, are you talking about Capra or
Capra?
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you meant Nile. I was like, they're vines.
That was way less of an issue in general in Elden Ring was camera problems. I mean, it wasn't always perfect, but compared to playing Dark Souls, I didn't feel like I was completely out of control of where I was looking a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, I mean, Nile himself is not bad, but like, I mean, he's like a B tier fight at best. He's not.
Yeah,
I don't
think
know.
it's very interesting as like a fight. He's just hard.
Does anyone have alternate opinions on Nile, or are we all?
I summoned for the fight like unapologetically. Like I was just like, "Oh, you're summoning? Well, fuck, I'm summoning then."
I think that's a solid rule. And I didn't feel too bad about it for that reason, because I'm like, clearly this is what the game wants me to do here. I'm just not happy about it. If I had known about the bewitching branch thing, then I might have tried that. But yeah, man.
That's one of the issues I think that exists with I like the idea of like, oh, you can make the game easier or harder by summoning, but at the same time a lot of fights are really easy if you summon, and still quite difficult if you don't.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sit there and try to micromanage like, all right, well, this boss is kind of hard, so I'm only going to upgrade to +7. But
Yeah.
this one's really hard, so I'm going to like. It's sort of like you ruin the fight or you don't with summoning. Maybe.
I didn't feel so bad about it with the Nile one because I didn't totally hate fighting just Nile himself. So I was like, basically this is how I get a fair fight. So like if this is what's going to lead to me just enjoying the fight more, then I don't feel so bad about it. And that was basically my thoughts on it. But it was the only boss other than Radon where summoning is like kind of non-optional that I summoned for at all. Even Ash summons. It was the only one. So yeah. Fire Giant is another kind of spicy one. I don't like it for two reasons and two reasons alone, and it's because he has the biggest health pool of basically any enemy in the game. To an extreme fault because the boss you fight right before him is Morgott, who has like too small of a health pool in my opinion. Even though, in my opinion, best boss in the game, but we'll get to that. But Fire Giant has a ludicrous health pool and basically universally two-shots you. Like on a good day. Like you're lucky to get away from one attack basically because everything staggers you. Poise does not exist in that fight. Just everything knocks you over or knocks you off your horse. And then his floating balls or his fire attacks can easily combo like you getting staggered once into just like an insta-death. What I do like about the fight is that you actually need to use Torrent. Radon, you could say the same thing for, but I thought it was a little bit more interestingly done in the Fire Giant fight, where like some of the best ways to dodge some of his attacks are actually to use like the iframes from Torrent, and I kind of like that.
I really enjoy
use
dodging
Torrent.
the big what is he carrying? Is it a shield?
Yeah, I called it a plate.
It's a sled. He likes to sled around the mountain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dodging that, like just walking around on foot, was so much fun.
It is fun. It's hilarious when it looks like it should have just like crushed you into a pulp.
Yeah. That part I enjoyed a lot, but there are certain elements. The other issue is if you aren't using Torrent and he's rolling around, it is almost impossible to get like close to him and do like significant damage.
That fight.
I found him easier without Torrent.
That fight, in my opinion, pretty much demanded a combo of Torrent and on foot because, like, for me, it felt like there was no way to like reliably close the gap, especially in his second phase when he was rolling around like crazy, unless you were on Torrent, unless you want to just get used to like running up to him and then immediately having him roll away. Which
he
could
does
happen,
have some of those move sets where, like, once he starts doing something, you're like, all right, I'm gonna get on my horse, I'm gonna ride away, I'm gonna wait for you to finish, and then I'll come back.
Yeah, his second. It's a good thing he doesn't have that much health in the second phase because the second phase was definitely approaching just like pure bullshit territory, like just AOE spam. Like I don't know. That's my opinion on the fight. I didn't like it. I admired the attempt at like a fight where like Torrent is an actual like factor in the fight, but it didn't quite land for me.
I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say because you mentioned his really big health pool earlier, and I think his weak leg looks like an armored leg, which is funny because I identified it as being like weak pretty quickly, but when you and I were talking about it, you said it looked armored, and then I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, it does kind of look like the stronger leg. He's got like a bunch of shit on it.
Well, the first time I broke it, I got it. But yeah.
But then his eye, like, it's huge and obvious, but getting to it because you have to like come in between his hands, which are casting spells and doing shit, is like not even worth it. It's like, yeah, you'll do a bunch of damage really fast, but you'll die. So maybe don't go slice his other foot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and then like in phase 2, the weak spot is like the like burned or like whatever like weak spot on his arm, and that's like it's so hard to hit. It ends up just being like you tickle his feet until he dies.
I didn't even know about that, but yeah, hitting his arms is hard too. I didn't have that much trouble with him. I didn't hate him as much as I didn't dislike him as much as I think you did while you were fighting him, but he could definitely be improved.
Mm-hmm. So Zach, I think you said you like him, so I'm curious where you differ.
I don't know if I'd say I like. I'd maybe put him at like a B or a C.
Okay.
He's another good spectacle.
Yeah, for
great
sure.
great music too. I mean, the music is pretty much good across the board, but
Yeah, for all of these. I'm with Garrett. I definitely like learning to roll through those giant saucer attacks.
Yeah,
that was very
That was
satisfying.
a lot of fun once you start
I-
once that starts clicking.
I will agree that that's not by far the bad part of the fight. It's mainly the fire attacks that get really
phase one
oppressive.
is way better than phase 2.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
I guess I used a lot of the time when he rolled away to just kind of like rebuff or like chug a potion or whatever, and then maybe I got lucky, but he just kind of came back towards me most of the time. I didn't use Torrent for the fight just because I found that there was a couple of attacks that seemed a lot harder to avoid.
Oh, definitely.
And for me, when I did a fight with Torrent, it was either all or nothing. I would either be on him the whole time or I'd just say, okay, well, this is going to be a ground battle. So I do think that the health is probably the only one sore spot since he moves around so much, but it's an okay fight.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say it's great.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is like the bosses I dislike in Dark Souls 1, and honestly at this point Bloodborne as well, I really dislike. The worst bosses in this game, I was kind of just like, it's kind of disappointing, but you know, it's still, it works. Maybe other than like Godskin Duo and Nile, which I think were like the two that I really hated. Yeah. I don't know. Is there any other bad ones we want to talk about, or should we move into? Because I definitely am more excited to talk about the good ones than the bad ones, and there is a lot of good ones.
I didn't even realize that like the whole point of our current conversation was bad ones. Elden Beast, not great.
Yeah, we can talk about. Yeah. I think that is more in like the mixed category for me, but like I don't know. I guess I could just rattle off like some of my favorites, and I'm curious how yours stack up, because we all mostly agreed on the worst ones, so we're probably also going to be pretty much agreement about the best ones. But for me, like, I don't know, top 5, I think like number 1 for me probably Morgott / Margit. I kind of like count them as the same, even though they are like drastically different fights. But I think like the way that they tie together is really cool, and I like that you kind of have a rematch against him, like a meaningful rematch, and not just like, oh, it's another Erdtree avatar. Sick! I'm so excited. Godfrey, Malekith. I think that's probably my top 3 right there. So I'm curious for you guys where your kind of like top 3 lands. But I think those were probably the best for me.
I remember, and maybe even if like the fights weren't super good, all the ones that stand out to me are just like creativity. Natural Born Estelle.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorites. The Ancient Spirit. What's he called?
Ancestral
Spirit. Yeah.
Ancestral Spirit. Like super easy fight. I thought I killed it in like 1 or 2 attempts, but really liked that one. Obviously Margit, like you can't not say Margit. Godfrey was really good as well. But yeah, most of them I liked. I really liked my first fight against a dragon on horseback. It felt awesome. And then you fight like 20 more dragons. But I did actually really, really like the dragon fights.
Imagine having a son or daughter and naming it Malekith. Malekith
was a good fight.
More of just a being than I think
he's the same as what's his face? He's a shadow.
Yeah.
As Blythe.
Yeah.
Blythe, yeah.
I'm gonna throw some ones at you guys that you may or may not agree with,
Okay.
because like the ones that what you've said so far, like I wholeheartedly agree. Like yes, some of the final fights are probably some of the best in the game, but I really enjoyed the tree sentinels. Like after learning how to fight tree sentinels and being able to dodge the attacks, fighting tree sentinels on foot is peak Elden Ring for me. I was really enjoying the entire experience because it catches you off guard. It's a very fast fight, and there's a lot of panicking. And anytime I panic in games, it's a lot of fun for me. I don't know why.
The tree sentinel. I think it's like the dragon tree sentinel.
Yeah, the draconic tree sentinels were quite fun for me.
That made me want to jump off a cliff. But
Really?
like,
Oh,
once
I enjoyed those.
No. So at first, because I was really struggling against him, and then when I got the timing down on that one, it felt so good.
Yeah.
Because there are cues for all of his moves. Some of them are just pretty subtle. So I ended up really liking that fight, even though it took me much longer to kill that thing than it took me to kill Malakath, which was slightly embarrassing. But
on the
I do like the
subject,
Tree Sentinels.
on the subject of dragon fights, I agree with you that like the one in the swamp, Agil, was pretty cool. Agil, yeah. He was pretty cool, and then like they pretty much immediately like kind of lost their allure until Fortisax and Placidusax, which I thought both were quite cool fights, especially Placidusax.
Yeah, hold on.
You're not going to get me to say that name. Like, I know which one you're talking about, but like, I'm not going to.
Oh, is that the one? Is that the stinky one?
The stinky one
in the basement.
It's the one.
No.
No. What's the one that you fight for? What's her
for
face?
Fia?
Fia.
Yeah, that's Fortisax.
Fortisax.
The stinky one.
The other one's at Crumbling Farm.
Okay, so I had those flipped.
Yeah.
I had Fortisax.
I liked dodging Fortisax was almost like a rhythm game, because when you get close to him, he sort of just has this electrical field that just keeps like hitting you, and I kind of enjoyed just like timing the dodges, and like it was frustrating the first couple times, but I grew to really enjoy dodging that.
The area of effect attack started to like make me a little frustrated. I remember just spending a lot of time running away and then coming back for that specific attack to take place, and it's a frequent AoE too. So
yeah, are you talking about like the lightning spear, like that he just smashes into the ground? Yeah, see, the thing is you can roll through that one too, though, which I kind of liked.
You can?
You can roll through it.
Shit.
So it actually, I enjoyed that fight because it is actually possible to, especially because he's in a smaller arena, it's actually possible to be aggressive on him, which I felt was not really the case with other dragons. Even Placidusax, which is another fight that I really enjoyed. I liked Fortisax better because I felt like his fight lent itself really well to just learning the dodge timings and just being aggressive.
Did anybody like Dragonkin soldiers?
Yes.
Yeah, actually,
especially.
There's only a couple, isn't there?
One of them's in the worst place in the game. We don't talk about that spot, but
yeah, I found that one and I immediately noped out of it. I was like, this is not worth it.
Wait, which one is that?
Lake of Rot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, my favorite place.
Yeah.
I think the only one that has the phase change is the one in Noxtella, but that's quite a cool fight.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that a lot. I almost forgot about it. It's funny because like there's so many like good bosses that some of the like good but like, more like B tier boss fights that I did earlier on I kind of forgot about. But that is, now that I'm looking back, I'm like, that is a good one.
I'm trying to reach
some of them
back into
fight so many times.
My memory here. What else off the top of your head? Like, is there any boss that like you had a more fun fighting than like any other boss fight that you haven't mentioned yet?
Go for it.
Well, I mean, so all right, here's the thing, and I'm probably gonna gush here for a bit, so I apologize in advance. But all right, so the actual dragons, like not the wyverns, like Agil and the Borealis and all that. The like watching, I think the one in Altus Plateau is Lanciax or whatever. Watching a dragon call down a lightning bolt and catch it in his hand to swing at me was the most metal thing
cool.
I've seen in a video game. I loved every single dragon fight. And head and shoulders above the rest, Placidusax is just the best fight in the game. It is such a spectacle. It's the only fight that I had not heard a single thing about. So
I kind of agree.
Yeah, I was pretty blind.
I had seen the only thing I knew about that fight going in was like the is like sort of the intro, like the way he looks, like where he looks like the two fingers, like which is cool, but I didn't know anything about how the fight would play out.
But that fight is such a fantastic spectacle on top of being a good boss
it's fun,
fight. I love his two desperation moves. The first one where he like summons the lightning bolt and slams it into the ground, and then the sound just cuts out, and you're like, "Oh, okay, I better get the fuck out of here."
Nuke.
And then it just explodes. So cool.
And the
and then the
go for it.
The laser breath being the other one.
Yep.
Sorry.
Oh, he's
I
a
love
he's a
that
really
fight
good
so
fight.
much.
No,
He's a
it is
really
great.
good combination of like the arena's super cool. The being inside the fucking hurricane is incredible. He's a really cool looking enemy, and the fight itself is
Is
also good.
is that
Like,
the only fight where you get to like teleport out anytime you want? Because
You can do that?
I don't know if anybody else experienced that, but like when you die and respawn, you're like there, like right in front of the dragon, like right when the fight is starting. There's no
I
like
don't
you have to run
remember.
away and
You
then
might
get
be
into a
right.
map and leave
I had to
that
do a
way.
run back every time I died.
Really? I was just
Yeah.
spawning. I was spawning in the arena.
What? How?
I don't know. We're talking about the same place, right? Ferrum Azula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
No, like I would die at that boss room, and then it would spawn me in the center of the boss room with the dragon there. Maybe it was a glitch, but
That
That's nice.
well, I mean, I did feel like that fight should have a Stake of America. Like I
Oh,
felt like
yeah.
it was crazy that it did, because the run
But
back
there-
is
but there's no-
actually the
there was
worst
no
in the
boss door.
game. But
there was no
I
boss. door or
remember there
anything.
being
I was just
a
in
run
the center.
back.
It's
I think
it's
Darren
the
and I might have
same-
had the same experience on that one because I don't remember having to run back.
That's wild. I don't know what you guys were doing because it's the same grace that you fight Draconic Tree Sentinel and Malakath.
yeah,
Well, I teleported there. Like there was just a marker on my map. I didn't remember like hitting any grace site that was like
Oh.
directly in the center. I was like, oh, that's weird that I can teleport there. And then it was just the boss fight. Like I don't know. I guess that wasn't
that
intended.
is weird.
but,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying like after you died, you could open up the map and just go there.
No, I like before I even fought the boss. Like there was a new marker on my map. At some point later on after I had left Farm Azula. And I didn't realize there was
Oh.
another boss there. Nick told me there was a boss, and I just checked my map. I was like, oh, I can go there.
He's super easy to miss, and he's essential for removing the flame thing.
Yeah, that's
if,
right.
If
the
you
frenzy
forgetting what
accidentally
flame.
everything's
stumble
called.
across it, like I think there are a lot of people who just straight up like saw that door and they're
Well-
like, oh yeah, of course I take off all my clothes and then walk through it. So,
Yeah.
obviously.
Well, there
I
were,
need to be
for me at
pure.
least, there was messages, but yeah, what a weird, like, the entire like chain of events, especially like if you do it and then you want to get rid of it, is like so obscure.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I did it just because I wanted to go through the thing of like getting rid of it. I saw it could be removed, and I was like, "All right, well, I'm getting it." Apparently, it gives you some resistance to frenzied flame. I don't know if that's actually true.
Hmm.
Like doing that.
I didn't know that.
So
Yeah,
I
you
don't even
can't
know if it's
reapply
ending is
real.
it.
fucked up, by the way. I don't know if anybody actually like got to that ending where they
I'm working on
are
it.
marked. It's a very depressing ending out of all the ones that are available. So.
I actually, I need to go back and do all the endings, or at least just like watch them all on YouTube or something. I probably should just go do them for the achievements, and I know you can do them with like save states or like save duplication.
I probably should have
Yep.
duped my save and done them. But
So that's probably what
I'll
I'll
get
end
at
up
least
doing,
one more
but-
in New Game Plus. Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely agree. I don't Placidusax or Placidusax, however you want to say it, saxophone. It is
Descent to saxophone.
definitely like a top. It's like a top like A tier fight for me. I think like my S tier is basically what I said, but like the A tier, I would throw like Melania, Moog, some of those other Godric I really liked as well.
What about Electo? Do you like Electo?
Electo was pretty fun, yeah.
Yeah, I struggled a lot with Electo.
Yeah, she's hard. But yeah, I'm trying to think, like, I guess just to like touch on some of like the main ones, I guess, like Margit obviously is like, that's like the one that everyone kind of talked about so much early on.
Yeah.
But I loved that fight, even for how difficult it was with like it was one of those where I like probably could have had an easier time with it if I wanted to, but I sort of stubbornly beat my head against it. But I came to just really enjoy it. Like it's crazy how much that fight changes from when you first start it. And like, you're just like, this guy has no windows. He just beats my ass. Like I can't do anything. Like I move away, he hits me with the daggers. I move closer, he hits me with the daggers. Like I just can't fucking do anything. All the way to like, I can dodge every single one of his attacks. I can predict when the daggers are coming out. Like it's so cool, like how just the way that fight progresses when you actually like learn it. and I really came to appreciate that. And then just like the Morgott fight, which my only single complaint about is that I just wish he had more health, because they basically just take Margit, who it's already like you can overcome, like you already know a lot of his attacks, and you can learn and overcome them, and then they basically just like crank it up to like 10 with more attacks and like, but still like generous, learnable windows, and just like the most badass voice acting in the game. Super cool lore and like just presentation of both fights. Yeah, that was just like my favorite. It's hard to like pick one or the other, but that's just my favorite like 2 boss fights in the game, pretty much tied, because I think they're better. They're both better for the other one existing.
Morgott's got the obsidian looking blade, right?
Yeah, like
the rainbow colored blood sword.
I love that weapons design.
It's really
cool.
cool.
Such a cool idea.
His intro cutscene is just like the coolest thing ever too. How he like cracks his cane and like
have it writ upon thy meager grave.
Yeah, his lines are just like the best.
Everything he says is like, damn, all right.
I'm dead.
I could never pull that line off. I just look like
yeah.
a nerd, but this guy, he can say it.
And just like the arena you fight him in too, which you also happen to fight Godfrey in, which in my opinion is like the second/third, if you count Margit and Morgott as 2 different fights, which they are, but I just count them together for ease. Godfrey is probably my second favorite fight. I just like.
Have you used his Ash of War? It's fun as fuck.
No, apparently the weapon itself is bad though. Like apparently it's scaling as shit. Like it caps out at C or something.
Oh, that's sad.
I don't even remember what his weapon is, but I might not have.
The big
I guess you'd have
axe.
two remembrances, so
Yeah.
I don't know which one I actually would have used, but his Ash of War is just to do that like stomp, and like that's
That's
it's fun.
cool.
Maybe it's not good, but it's fun. It's really good against crowds of NPCs.
No, the Ash of War is probably good. I heard that the weapon itself isn't good because it's scaling like caps out at C or some shit, which is like obscenely low. But yeah, I just, that fight is just pure fun. Like every phase, like of his like, kind of quote unquote 3 phases, he really only has 2 distinct phases, but like when the moment he does the first stomp, that fight changes a lot from like the phase 1 / like the golden shade version. But it's fun to dodge his axe attacks, and then it's especially fun to dodge his stomp attacks. And then the Horaloo fight is just ridiculous. I didn't really. I know some people struggled with it. I didn't really find it hard. I honestly found it almost a little easier to dodge even than the stomp phase.
Yeah. I love the stomp so much.
The stomp is very cool. But I just like how they get you into like a really kind of like good and consistent rhythm of dodging the stomps. And then Horaloo just comes in and is like, I'm going to just do whatever the fuck I want. Like,
I'm going to grab you,
yeah,
bring you up into the air and fucking smash your head and do a
and he stomps too, but he does it in like a weird rhythm. So it's like, oh, this is different. And yeah, it's the only boss I wasn't mad when he did his grab attack on me, because I'm like, I'm not even mad. This is just cool. Like, just throws you up into the sky and then suplexes you into the earth.
I don't think he ever grabbed me. I don't remember that.
That's a spectacle.
I think is there any bosses that off the top of your head, like not saying it's a bad boss, but like it's a could have been like reworked to be more difficult and been a more like challenging fight for you?
For me,
challenging.
I always see the ancestor spirit. It's being like a really cool design.
That was my first one that I was going to say was Ancestor Spirit.
Yeah, because I feel like that could have been a more challenging experience, and just the overall design is really, really cool. So I was kind of disappointed with how easy that fight was.
If it had cast some more like spells or something as it was doing its other attacks, I think that would have worked pretty well. But like as it was, it jumped at you, and that's about all I remember.
Yeah.
It didn't do a whole lot.
I thought the Regal Ancestor Spirit's like healing mechanic was kind of interesting. And especially because like it healed off like the ghosts of like the animals in the arena. You could actually just go and kill those and then it wouldn't be able to heal. which would have been
killed it too fast to ever see that.
Yeah, no, that's the thing is like it would have been if the fight was just a little bit harder, it would have been more interesting to have that option because it's like I'm like it's cool that you can do that, but I don't know why you would because you could at this point in the game you can just kind of DPS check it to death like. But yeah, I like the Ancestor Spirit fights a lot. Like the music and just the spectacle in the arena and everything was very good. But yeah, I agree. Like mechanically, not bad, just like easy. I think between the two bosses, I maybe went like 5 rounds total with both of them. Like
make that a
such
dual
tiny
boss.
health pools too. Like, that probably could have been.
Yeah, like let's see what happens. Let's see if
it's so little
balances
health.
yeah,
It's crazy how fast they died.
Yeah, like, and then just other ones, like I said, Morgott, I would just raise his health, like, because I think his attacks are really fair, fun to dodge. Like, I just wish that fight lasted longer, especially like, it's weird to just like to be punished with like a less fun fight for like having done all the extra stuff. Like, I get it. But at that point in the game, it's not Margit anymore. You know, it's like there's no lesson to teach really. Like, just give us like a fun, challenging fight to cap off like the best area in the game basically. Not to say it's not challenging, he still killed me a fair few times, but
oh god, not
it could have
about
been a
his
little harder.
Difficulty, but his when he vomits before he enters his like second phase.
I had no idea that was coming.
Oh yeah, and he like, what does he say? He's like, I will not forgive your part in desecrating this place or some shit like that.
The throne's stained by my curse. Your part in this shall not be forgiven, something like that. Yeah,
because like you're the one that made him. Look what you made me do.
Mom, I threw up.
I think it's a little bit further than that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, at least lore-wise, but yeah, that's funny too.
But yeah, and then Malekith, I would have liked to see his second phase like last just a little bit longer. I think they could have toned down just his damage output and given him like a full health bar. And I think his like, because I basically took almost no damage from him when I fought him. So I went back and fought him in co-op. And it made me realize like that the fight is really fun, especially because in co-op he has a much higher health pool. The problem is that like his like, I don't even know what you want to call it, like the black flame, like the life steal mechanic can get really oppressive if you're getting hit even just a couple times. And yeah, I mean, basically everything he does is like 2-hit kill, which I think was kind of the intention, but I would have liked to see like Beast Clergyman could have been a little squishier because I felt like I was fighting Beast Clergyman for a long time, like because he's very like aggressive and you have to wait out a lot of like AoE attacks and stuff and then just go in for like 1 or 2 hits and then back off again. Whereas Malekith is like, the fight ends a lot quicker because he has bigger windows sort of than the Beast Clergyman, but also he's like very
glass cannon too.
Yeah, very susceptible to bleed and stuff like that. So yeah, I just the fight lasted like I don't know, like 2 minutes for me.
He probably could have at least gotten his health back like after the fight because he comes in at like 2/3 or something. It's a pretty big chunk is missing.
Yeah. And the Beast Clergyman isn't bad to fight, but it's not fun to fight like to the extent that I want to spend half the fight doing that instead of fighting the like extremely cool, well-designed boss that comes after.
I probably spent 75% of that fighting like across all my attempts fighting the Beast Clergyman, and then like the last 25% was the good part of the fight, which felt was a bit of a shame.
Well, and then yeah, go ahead, Zach.
Well, I know if it's something else I thought of. So if you're going to talk about Malekith more, go ahead.
No, I was going to change gears to Moog and Melania, who are kind of like the two big bosses that I feel like. Okay. Oh, we haven't talked about Renala at all. Renala or Godric. I mean, Renala's fine. I didn't really care for her too much, but the fight isn't bad. It's just like it's not my idea of like a fun fight necessarily.
Put a Stake America in front of it at least, please.
Yeah, that is a bullshit run back. It's weird that like just some of them randomly don't have a Grace or a Stake America.
And there's no good reason for it either, because sometimes they'll double up on Grace sites at like most arbitrary of locations. Like they'll
I forgot who Renala
really
is.
close to each other.
No, I just wanted to be sure because I remember America, a site of America. I remember there being a I remember not having a run back for that.
Nope, she did. You have to run
She
back
definitely
from right
does.
outside of the Red Wolf arena.
Yeah.
Do you?
Up
Yep.
up where
What?
the stone
Are you
rolls
sure?
down. Yeah,
Very
yeah.
positive.
Yeah, it sucks. Which
I don't
it almost
remember
feels like an oversight, like it because there's like the elevator that you have to ride up, and then there's like a huge like landing area up there with nothing in it. That feels like it should have had a Steak
Maybe
American
it's because
there.
I only fought her twice, so maybe that's why I don't remember it. But
Mm.
yeah, I did not remember having a run back for that. I like that area. Obviously, you don't want to
Yeah,
do it over
Raya
and over
Lucaria
again,
is
but
cool, but yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Like seeing Raya Lucaria for the first time when you like leave Limgrave was kind
It's
of
very
like
cool, yeah.
an oh shit moment for me in that game. So and still is if I
oh,
go
there's
back
a
and play it.
shortcut. That's why. Okay, there's a shortcut up an elevator.
That shortcut is not that short though.
No, but it's you don't have to do the full area.
No, yeah. Yeah, Renala, phase 1 is like a formality basically. You just have to kill her, I don't know, clones or daughters or whatever the fuck they are. And then
Yeah, I
and-
didn't like having to redo that each time. It wasn't.
And then
wasn't
phase
great.
2 isn't too bad. Like I at first like she would just Kamazure me, like one shot me, and I was like, this fight is bullshit. And then I didn't even try like necessarily dodge rolling it. I just started running around it, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
you can just run and she can't hit you with anything.
There's
And then I killed
there's
her,
a good
like,
few
immediately.
attacks that you often realize far too late that like you never had to dodge. You just had to sprint around while they kind of did their thing.
Jumping
Elden
is
Beast is like
surprisingly
that.
effective in a lot of fights too.
Yeah.
Like that's something that they kind of brought over from Sekiro, it seems like, which a lot of people don't think to do, because I've heard a lot of things are like the X is undodgeable or whatever, and I'm like, I think I just jumped that.
Well, we talked about this where the weapon you're holding makes a pretty big difference on your hitbox while you're
Mm.
jumping, because you don't get iframes, but it's a much larger window for an attack that's going to miss you if you jump. But if you're holding a weapon that you hold down at your waist, it has to be a much lower attack, and you have to time it much better.
Yeah,
If you've got like a sword on your shoulder and both your hands are up, you get a huge advantage, which is a little silly.
that is
like,
weird. Yeah. Well, it feels like your sword shouldn't be part of your like hurt box. That doesn't
well, it's
really
not
make any
the
sense.
sword that's part of the hurt box. It's just because your hands are down.
Oh,
at your
sure.
side.
Yeah.
Stance.
Yeah, which is like it's cool that the hitbox is accurate, but this is kind of an instance where it's like if I'm jumping to dodge something, I'm not gonna like jump up and shove my fist below me. Like you'd raise them up, you know.
Yeah.
So it didn't make a whole lot of sense.
But yeah, so I was gonna I remembered that we didn't talk about either of these. Godric as well we mentioned, but I liked Godric. That's one fight where like my only complaint really was that phase 2. Once you kind of just get got by his like fire and his grab attack a few times, it's just like trivially easy, because you realize like you can just chip him down, run up to him and while he's doing the fire and just like wail on him because he won't stop. Like
Yeah. I thought he was cool, but yeah, he's kind of easy, especially at like after Margit. He's a bit of a
phase 1 is no
okay.
joke. Phase 1 can still fuck you up, but yeah, I agree. And like he staggered a little bit more consistently than Margit. Like I noticed that like just hitting Godric would buy you like even just like half a second. You need to roll away from most of his attacks. Like
The dude ripped off a dragon's head and put it on his arm.
funniest shit I ever saw.
Holy
Arm.
Well,
like,
first he has
the
to cut
first
off
time
his own
fighting
arm.
him, first time fighting him and seeing that it's the most metal fucking
Oh yeah.
shit. It's
Yeah.
so cool. I absolutely love like the introduction to the phases. Some of the like attacks are like you kind of get used to them, but I struggled a lot with Godric. The first
No, he
time I was
definitely
fighting.
wasn't easy for me, but coming after Margit that I spent probably like 4 hours of attempts on, like Godric was done quite a bit quicker for me.
Sure.
Put a pretty big gap between Margit and him. I remember like
Oh, and see, I
100%
beelined
the
right
castle.
to Godric.
Yeah, and I think I might have done some stuff up at Liurnia of the Lake, and then been like, oh, I should go back and finish the castle. So I might have been a little over leveled for him.
See, I
was
didn't
over
even
leveled for like the whole game at a certain point. Just everything became easy.
I didn't even know that that you could
Not
go
easy, but-
around. So I was like, the rest of the game is being gated by this boss. So I'm like, I'm gonna just kill him, and then like if I want to come back for something, then I will. But yeah, I mean, it was a fun fight for me. I don't know, it doesn't stick out as like the best, but like I also am kind of like, yeah, there
I
wasn't
still
like really
liked it.
anything that I
It just
disliked
wasn't
about it.
Incredible.
Yeah,
Easily one of the best levels and lead ups though to
yeah,
a boss.
Stormvale is
Just
very cool.
The entire castle design is pretty signature, and I know why they use that as like their main fuel for advertising when the game was first being shown off.
I think
It
part of it
really-
was maybe just not wanting to spoil stuff too, because it's early in the
Sure,
game.
but it's such a good strong reason to like motivate people to check out the game though. Just
Yeah, for
like
sure.
that, like after seeing the castle, I was like, oh well, I guess I'm buying this now.
Yeah.
That is, I think we talked about this last time, but like just the way that the world is built so that like it used to be there is like kind of like painted vistas of everything you're going to next, but now it's a like Bethesda meme. I know it's like, oh, you see that you can go there, but in Elden Ring it's so much more dramatic. Seeing Stormvale in
Yeah.
the distance is like, oh shit.
Yeah, and well,
It's
and
just
like
a
not
huge
everywhere you
wall.
look in Skyrim looks like a fucking painting either. It's just like
Yeah.
it's like,
I
oh,
don't know how they
there's a
did that,
dot in that
but-
vast array of brown and gray that I can walk to.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Everything started with a big
How do I glitch
gray
over
box,
this mountain?
and they were like, how big does this box have to be in relation to this other box?
Mm.
And then they just figured out the visual fidelity from there.
game design is easy. It sounds like that's what I'm getting
Yeah,
from it.
yeah. Just big gray boxes.
Big gray boxes.
Pretty much.
But yeah, I think really the last three to talk about is like Moog, Melania, and then the final boss.
Well, which Moog?
Well, I guess I mean,
Actual mode.
yeah, Sewer Moog is just Moog Phase 1. But I'm not gonna lie,
Sewer
I
Moog.
actually really liked Sewer Moog. Like there's no effective cheese because he's resistant to everything. You just it's just a fucking classic like get good fight. Like you just have to learn to dodge him and
This is what I'll say about Moog. Sewer Moog is a more engaging fight for me. And then the real Moog, the level is like way better.
yeah,
I love the lead up.
it's
to,
cool. Yeah.
To Moog's like big arena, but yeah, Lord of Blood is an asshole.
He's crazy. I mean, I can't like really fault them. I think like I have some specific complaints about Melania especially, but also a few about Moog. In terms of their difficulty, like their overwhelming difficulty. I think Moog, just because Melania is so hard, Moog Lord of Blood has been underrated in his difficulty. I think he is damn near close to as hard as
stupid hard.
Melania.
Oh, yeah.
I do have one complaint, and that's his. You need to find that one specific
Nihil, yeah.
tier, which is just.
That's ridiculous.
I kind of
Yeah.
liked so I agree that I don't like that. I don't like that you need to find like a specific and relatively obscure item with no like real reason
'cause
for you to go find that item until you get to him. But what
I
I did
explored everything in that area too. That was like the
Yeah.
one thing I had missed.
Yeah, no,
so-
same. But what I did kind of like about that fight was that I sort of like developed a ritual for that fight. I actually used two weapons in that fight. I used Bloodhound's Fang and Rivers of Blood. I use Bloodhound's Fang like for the fight when I'm just like dodging and like trying to just get my hits in. But then when he started doing Nihil, because he was susceptible to bleed, I would whip out Rivers of Blood. I would drink my physic, and then I would just start like slicing and dicing with the Rivers of Blood. And I kind of thought, even though like I thought that having to drink the tear to avoid that attack and like even have a chance at him like not like basically insta killing you and full healing.
You can tank through it, but
You can, but yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the fight is already very hard, even if you don't do that, or even if you
Yeah.
do that. So,
because it doesn't feel like you're like being smart and strategizing and like naturally countering, like, oh, he does a lot of this type of damage. I'm going to use this talisman or
Well,
whatever.
that
It's like, nope, this
yeah.
you need this item from this place, and the
That was what I
description of the
did
item tells you.
personally, was that I found a way to capitalize on that period of time where he's doing his nihil attack to mitigate his healing and like output the most damage while he's doing that. And I liked that aspect of it. But yeah, I think that there are other ways to do that than just making a required item basically for the fight.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed both phases. Phase 2 is hard as shit. And like honestly, just evil in its design, the
It's
way that
chaotic.
it zones you out.
Too much blood.
Yeah, a little bit too much, but I still kind of liked it. Like I liked the concept of it, and I was like, okay, this is a little oppressive, but like I see what you're doing here. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed that. But I could definitely, if someone was like, I hate that fight, I would be like, I get it. I did. His attacks were fun to dodge for me too, because like he actually was one of the few late game bosses that actually attacked slowly instead of like just super fucking fast. So it actually felt
He
like
has change ups though, which is something that I was not super keen on. I forget what exactly. I think it's the double overhead swing. The one that like he'll swing across once, then like do this big wind up, swing again, and then if you are within a certain distance, and I like rigorously tested this, he will do a third swing just to fuck you up.
Yep, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. His little ball thing too was like sometimes inconsistent in its hitbox. I thought. Yeah, I mean, like there were little things that just made that fight like not perfect for me, but I still overall enjoyed it.
Love the arena.
The arena's cool.
It
Yeah.
Just any time we're using like Roman columns everywhere. Just
The entrance to that place is so like weirdly hidden too. I'm sure there's like some tip or whatever that tells you how to get there, but I just kind of found it. And
Yeah.
I did not expect it to lead me to such a big and important area.
what you
just
mean
kinda
like the
accidentally
entire
ended up
like
there.
part of that map? Because it don't you have
Yeah.
to like invade people? Or-
Yeah,
You
you
can do a quest line, or you can find a teleporter in the consecrated
I
snowfield.
thought those were two different
Oh,
areas.
okay.
no,
I
they're
It's
had
the
all
no idea that was
connected.
the
Yeah.
same area because I never did the invasion thing, so I thought that was just a different spot.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, same spot. So all right, Melania.
He's my number 2 favorite.
I like the boss a lot, but I do think I have to agree that like the healing mechanic maybe needs some work. I don't inherently hate it because it basically forces you to play smart and not just like hit trade with her. However, the fact that you can't block the healing is kind of bullshit. Like the fact that you can't use a shield is kind of bullshit. I also think that I don't mind her having like one really like extremely powerful gotcha attack like waterfowl. I enjoyed learning how to dodge it, but I don't think I would have figured out how to dodge it if I hadn't looked it up. Whereas that is the only attack in the game that I looked up how to dodge. And once I got it, it was fun. But I'm also kind of like, you should be able to just look at the attack and figure out how you might be able to dodge it. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I agree that it was. It's definitely like another like top of A tier boss fight for me. Just held out of like the top S tier by just like a few little things that I didn't really love. But you know, it's like a beating Melania for sure is like defining kind of like gaming moment. Like I will remember like doing that for a long time. And so there's something to be said about that. Like if she was easier, then I might not feel that same way. So
I kind of treated her as like a super boss in my mind. Like this is the one that everyone's, telling me is really difficult and the most time consuming. So I kind of went in expecting it to just take a while. But what I liked about it, as opposed to something like Moog, was while the phases of those two fights are kind of similar and they both, add more to the second phase, Melania is like super passive in her first phase. Like if you can run away from her, she will just kind of stop chasing you after a while, which gives you enough time to catch up on your heals and all that. Where Moog, there's a lot you have to kind of watch out for with all the blood on the ground and all that. So it was a lot more hectic to get that fight under my belt.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I did really enjoy Melania, and I was really happy with the fact that like when I went back to her in New Game Plus, I beat her on my second try and was like, okay,
nice,
cool. I do
yeah.
remember how to do this. This is really satisfying.
I'm kind of bummed. I like can't even talk about that fight because I beat her in 2 tries on my first go. I didn't even know
it's
she
so
was
insane.
supposed to be
It's
that.
so insane.
So I did use a summon, but even still, people were saying like, "Oh, don't use a summon because she'll just heal off your summon." And like, I didn't even notice that she healed when she hit things. Like, I killed her really fast, and that was it. And then later, I found out I had some kind of bizarro experience where like I barely fought her.
Did you stagger
She did
her?
use waterfall on me. Did I stagger her?
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't.
Wait, she didn't use it at all in
know.
either phase?
No, she did.
Oh, she did.
She
Okay.
did.
But she just like targeted your summon or something?
Who is your summon?
Yeah.
You remember?
Oh, it was me again.
Mimic
Oh,
tier.
so, okay.
What weapon? What weapon
Did
did
you
you
guys?
have?
Bloodhounds
Okay.
or Rivers of Blood.
I
One of
was
the two,
gonna say
probably
that I've
Bloodhound.
heard that Rivers of Blood with the mimic tier is really good against her because like the bleed obviously
Oh,
is,
you
is
stack the
quite good on
bleed.
her.
Yeah.
And so just doubling it up with no like health penalty because summoning like the mimic doesn't.
Bloodhound's
double her
thing does
health.
do bleed, just not as much. But
Yeah, well, it actually has a really high bleed buildup, but you just can't get hits in as fast with it.
yeah.
So it decays faster. But yeah,
Uh,
I did use Rivers of Blood for that fight. But I basically had I only put a few levels into Arcane, which apparently the way that you really melt her health is just by going all in on Arcane, basically.
Yes.
So I did not feel like Rivers of Blood was a major factor for me in that fight, other than that the L2, if I timed it just right, could cancel Waterfowl. But I think other Ashes of War could do that as well. I don't think that's unique to Rivers of Blood.
Especially because it's got, I mean, it doesn't have great stagger or poison.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't stagger at all. Because I tried a few runs with Bloodhound's Fang, and I could stagger her. But I just couldn't get hits in as fast because it's a little bit slower of a weapon. So I kind of found myself just longing for the speed of the katana moveset. But yeah, I didn't find that other than the ability to cancel the waterfowl, which is why I stuck with it. I didn't find that the bleed was really like making a huge difference in that fight. It was more just the speed of the weapon that helped a lot. And I think on New Game Plus, when I finally get to her, I'll probably try something else and just see if I find the fight is like way harder. But I'm like sitting here like seeing people say using Rivers of Blood is like easy mode on her, and I'm like, man, I still had to fucking learn how to dodge her and like everything. I'm like, didn't feel like easy mode. It might have been like a little easier than using a different weapon, but
you didn't fight her on level 1 naked with just a short sword.
You know what? Maybe I fucking will.
Short sword. No, you got to use the club.
Yeah, the club is the way.
Wrench with the club is the only way to play the game.
Yep.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Every time I watch a video of somebody beating like Melania with like Wretch no hits club, I'm like, what the hell? Like, how do you do anything else? Like, do you even know anyone?
Fucking let me solo her. Killed her 1,000 times. He's killed her 1,000, and that's with the doubled health pool too in co-op.
He at least brought real weapons. But
yeah, he did. He used Rivers of Blood, which is like, that's the funniest thing about the people saying that using Rivers of Blood against her is basically cheesing her. I'm like, the best fucking Melania fighter in the world uses the weapon.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, metas are metas for a reason. It's like
I did
either.
Go ahead. Sorry, I shouldn't have just
no,
talked in the middle of your sentence.
I don't even know how I was gonna finish that. So, but yeah.
All I was gonna say was I actually just got bored of Rivers of Blood after that fight and dropped it and finished the game with Bloodhound Fang. And it wasn't even good against Godfrey, Radagon, and Elden Beast. Like none of them would bleed like the way that Melania did or the Godskin duo did. I was like,
Radagon just didn't give a shit.
He doesn't stagger at all from it. He doesn't bleed. Yeah. It worked on Godfrey, but I just found that like the raw like DPS damage output against him was not good. So I went to Bloodhound's Fang, and then I could stagger him, and yeah, just had more options. Anyways, I guess that's probably a pretty good segue to the final boss. It is what it is. I don't hate it, but I don't like the boss
Such
tandem.
a cool arena.
I don't like the boss tandem at all. Like I both bosses individually are fine, and if they had like, I think they could have made them both individually like better and more memorable fights, and then just put like a checkpoint in the middle. I didn't like the way that you had to fight them both back to back, because it made the Radagon fight annoying, because he's like Gwyn level aggressive, and like it's so hard to like dodge every single one of his hits, like, but you need at least like half of your flasks for the Elden Beast fight, like, because Elden Beast just chips and chips and chips at your health. Like,
I kind of disagree in that Elden Beast attacks are much easier because he doesn't have very many, and once you kind of know the strategy for them, you don't need a lot of health to beat him.
yeah,
Like, I feel like he
that's
was kind
true.
of the easier side of
And
the fight.
and actually, now that you say that, the time that I actually beat him, I think I like almost no damage to him. Like,
you're gonna need the health to learn him, though.
Yeah, that's the
true.
other
Like,
thing.
Obviously,
like there were times when I would use like all, because I had a few blue flasks, so I had maybe like 10 or 11 red flasks fighting Radagon. And a few times I would just go into the Elden Beast fight with nothing, and I would be like, I just can't wait to die to Elden Stars or whatever the fuck, like randomly.
Which it kind of turns out you can just like sprint away from, and
They
be fine.
they changed it. They patched it. Like,
Did they?
yeah. Well, no,
That's
sorry.
annoying.
It actually was harder to dodge probably back when you fought him, but they
Oh.
have since patched it to make it so you can run away from it.
Oh, okay. Because when I just sprinted away from it, it would get a couple small hits on me with its like radiant
Yeah.
things. But it would do like a 20th of my health bar when one of those hit just like once.
Yeah, I didn't
Uh,
find a lot of people complained about Elden Stars. I didn't find it to be the most annoying.
I
I
think a lot of
didn't
people
like
just didn't know that you could just run away. They're
Yeah.
trying to dodge it, and it would fuck you up. So
what I didn't like was the way he would combo his attacks. Sometimes made it hard to see what attack he was winding up for, because sometimes he would do that like nebula cloud, and then you would be like, oh, this is easy to dodge, just run out of the way of it. And then all of a sudden the sword beams would come flying through it. You would just be like, wow, like
Yeah.
I can dodge these if I can see them coming, but not if I fucking
was-
can't.
he was concealing his attack with smoke grenades.
Yeah,
It's
pretty
like-
much. And he just moves around so much too. It's just like it's a war of attrition a lot of times.
He's one of two bosses in the game that I feel like are like 100% designed to be done on horseback.
And you just
can't
can't,
fight him on
yeah.
horseback. He goes so far away, and you just gotta wait for him to do shit.
Well, even
What
like
do you-
Placidusax like pretty much confirms that like they can do like a mobile big boss without it being awful. Like,
Right.
because
Yeah.
he's like he moves around a lot, and he's like pretty aggressive, but like all of his attacks can be dodged, and then when he settles down in a spot, like you have a good solid window to just like wail on him.
Wail on. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Elden Beast, it felt like he would do all of his attacks, he would settle for like a moment, and then he would just be fucking off to the other side of the arena.
The
Like,
moment you reach him, he would just sink into the ground. You're
Yeah.
like, all right. This is
Later,
cool.
losers.
I think like I don't hate Elden Beast, but I think I would have preferred to see like a fleshed out Radagon fight just be the final fight.
Sure. I
Elden
do
Beast
like
wasn't so
Elden
much
Beast
a bad
design.
boss as he was just disappointing.
Yeah.
as a
I do
final
really
boss.
like the Elden Beast design though.
Yeah,
just
it's cool.
The,
It's
the
cool.
Night sky with the Erd tree gold colors
Yep.
going through it. But aside
Mhm.
from that, yeah, the actual fight's pretty lackluster.
The music is
I feel like
awesome
if-
too. Like the
If
main theme being like over
Yeah.
Radagon, and then
That's-
the very like serene kind of music over Elden Beast is cool.
I almost feel like they should have just made Estelle a little bit harder and flipped them. Estelle would have been, I feel like, a cooler final boss.
Yeah, that's actually another like kind of big and mobile boss that isn't awful. Like just it doesn't feel bad to fight him. My only complaint about Estelle is like when he moves around, it's sometimes hard to hit his head, which is like his weak spot.
Yeah.
That's maybe my only complaint. The second version of him, which I think is just unnecessary in general, his grab attack somehow felt less consistent
So dumb.
than the first one. Because the
It
first
100% is.
Yeah, there's some weird shit with his second version's one that made that fight worse, but in general, I
didn't
agree that's
notice
a good
that,
fight.
but yeah, like it just felt so weird fighting that like super crazy dramatic like what the hell is this thing? And then there's another one that's just
Yeah, it's like
unnamed.
just-
That's like, hey, I'm his brother. People don't really know me.
Yeah,
I'm actually stronger.
I'm Stars of Darkness. I'm his edgy twin.
yeah, exactly. All right, does anyone have anything else to say about bosses? I knew that would kind of take up the biggest discussion, but
I had a question because we were talking about earlier bosses that maybe needed a little bit of a buff, and honestly, I can't speak to this boss because I stun locked the shit out of him, and he died immediately.
Gideon?
Gideon, yeah, just decides to monologue, and I just ran up and was like, "Dude, I hate you so much," and just rivers of blood to his butt into oblivion. And
yeah,
he died. Before he did
his
anything.
fight kind of fucking sucks if you don't kill him while he's monologuing. He's not hard, but he literally is like he's just like a PvPer. He just spams spells like he literally with no cooldown.
He's me.
Like, oh, we are the same.
Nick, I think I
That's
talked to
fighting my
you
mimic
about it,
again.
and like I didn't even know that he was a caster. 'Cause, like, he died
Apparently,
so
I didn't
fast.
know you could just wail on him during his monologue, which now I will never not do because after
That's
seeing what
very
that
funny.
fight is like, it's annoying as shit.
The best strategy I've seen is when he starts his monologue, people just run up and use that frenzied flame attack where you like grab them and like burn their eyes out. You just do that. He like keeps talking too. So
I
So
feel
much for
like,
being all knowing.
yeah, right.
he doesn't
asshole.
even
Didn't see
he
that
doesn't even
coming.
know that much. That dude's always asking you questions about shit.
I
doesn't
read up
tell you
about how to be
anything.
a difficult boss, and I'm supposed to monologue for at least 20 minutes first.
But there should be a cutscene, and he
Yeah,
didn't
there
quite.
needs to be
Yeah,
a
right.
cutscene.
He wasn't in a cutscene.
I feel like the worst decision they made with him was like just giving him a boss health bar at all. Like he could have just been like an invader and then
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know.
absolutely.
Like it's just making him like a boss gives like a weird expectation to that fight, and it didn't need that. Like especially because like it's right in the midst of like the end game kind of boss rush. Like it's after Malekith and before Godfrey, who are like two of the best fucking bosses in the game, and then there's little Gideon just yelling at you from the
Yeah.
other end of the room. Like I don't know. It's
I
just a
feel like
weird.
they just
Nerd.
it's like they didn't know what to do with his character. They're like, well, we kind of got to clear out the tower or the round table.
What they
Like,
should have done.
what's he gonna do?
They should have given
People
him
want his
something
gear
defined
set.
and like maybe transform him into something like if anything, that would have been a perfect opportunity for a phase 1, phase 2.
Yeah.
Where you defeat like his PvP version, and then he's like, "Oh, well, now I'll show you my all-knowing power because that's in my name. And I'm all-knowing."
Well, that
And then
is his gimmick,
And then he
right?
takes
Like,
his hand,
parries
and then
every
he
single attack
grafts-
that you
and then he
make.
grafts 2 dragon heads on either
Mhm.
side of
oh,
his arms,
jeez.
and then he's just like flailing around like a waving
Fire
arm.
hurricane.
grows to
Waving tube
grows to
man.
Radon size, summons a horse, grows a serpent head.
Because he uses all of the like
Yeah,
the remember
yeah, he does.
spells, right?
Starts waterfouling you with his firearms.
That would be pretty cool.
Imagine
I
that.
flaming water.
Oh god.
0 to 100.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
But yeah, I honestly forgot to even talk about Gideon because he's such a non-event in the game. Like it's
Is
just
he
like
even a boss? Like
he is.
I
He
know
has a
bar,
boss
but
health bar, but yeah, I don't know. It's like
He should just graft Godfrey's corpse onto one of his arms.
there you go.
entire
There you
corpse,
go.
yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, it's the whole thing, and then at the very end of it is the dragon head.
Yeah.
Deal.
But yeah, he could have been a much better experience.
I thought it was fine. I didn't have like
It's all right for what it
such a-
is.
Yeah, it's such a
Yeah.
non-issue. Like when you're heading towards the final.
I
boss
didn't
that,
expect to fight him, so it was just kind of like, all right, guy.
I'll
I'm
take
gonna
a,
get your armor
like-
set now.
I'll take an underwhelming fight over like a hard bad fight any day. Like I'll take
a
a
hard lock.
I'd fight 10 Gideons before I'd fight another fucking Rom from Bloodborne. But yeah, I don't know. Do we want to just kind of sound off on the game? I mean, I think our opinions at this point are pretty obvious. I mean, I love the game. For me, Stacks Up is probably my favorite Souls game so far that I've played. Dark Souls 1 just kind of has like just a pretty weak like latter half or like final third of the game. And Elden Ring just feels like more polished and complete in a lot of ways. And Bloodborne I think more than Dark Souls, have enjoyed so far more than Dark Souls 1, but I just found like Elden Ring a little more suited to my tastes. But I'll be curious to see how it stacks up because I still need to play Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro and I guess Dark Souls 2. But I'm not super excited to play Dark Souls 2.
I'm never going to play Dark Souls 2.
Oh, it's fine. It's okay. I'm still enjoying my experience just because I'm playing it with somebody. But
I don't know. What about for you, Parker? I guess we can kind of go around the table here and sound off. But.
Yes, I mean, like you can kind of talk forever about like its flaws, but only because there's so much to the game.
Well, and so much good stuff too. That like the flaws.
It's so completely overshadowed by like just how much good there is to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Just the world as a whole. I haven't had that much fun with a game in a very, very long time where I just like wanted to take days off of work to play it. I didn't, and as weird as it sounds, I kind of regret not doing that. Probably would have gotten more sleep. But yeah, that was it's just as a whole, it's a very, very good experience. And it's kind of nice because once you've gone through it the first time, there's a lot of parts you don't like, you can kind of just avoid. So
yeah, that's true too. I think the only like for me with New Game Plus, like the only complaint I have is like for one that like it's far too easy for where I'm at. I almost wish New Game Plus like somehow scaled to your level. But
the end game picks up.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard too, because you'll level up slower if you are at a higher level going into New Game Plus. But and then the other thing too is like the game is so big that like you kind of just like it feels still like very long compared to like just doing a New Game Plus run of like Dark Souls or something. But yeah, go ahead.
There's definitely a weird step down. Like at the end of your first game, it's like Journey 1 or whatever you want to call it. The amount of souls you're getting is so much more than the beginning of New Game Plus, which kind of tells me that like New Game Plus is legitimately just like straight up too easy. Like I think they might have goofed some of the numbers there because you get I haven't leveled up a single time in New Game Plus and I've killed like 5 bosses.
That's pretty much where
like,
I'm at.
Not even close to leveling. Yeah.
I think it's tuned for like people who just ran through the game without doing Radon and Rykard.
Yeah.
And
well, that's the other thing. You don't want to make it too crazy, like the other way around, or it becomes an impossible thing.
Right.
Then again, you would level up super fast just killing basic enemies. So yeah, it's whatever.
Well, all right.
It almost feels like a little like a little victory lap.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. What about you, Garrett? I think you have kind of the most like Souls experience, so I'm curious for you how it stacks up.
I think it's a really good evolution of the series. I think there's a lot of people who played the previous titles, and when they heard there was going to be like an open world element to Dark Souls, a lot of people were really concerned about that because there's a lot of experimental stuff going on in Elden Ring. They brought over a lot of tools that they already had at their disposal, but I mean, this is a whole other experience in comparison to like any other title they've released. So the bigger thing for me now is wondering where they even go from here, because are they going to? Well, I know everybody wants Bloodborne to be re-released at some point, and they might do that. You never know.
Yeah.
But, in terms of there being like a new title, do they ever come back to the open world environment? Do they keep the concept of open world just to like the Elden Ring series, or are they thinking about doing this to the other series that they have? Which I'm not necessarily against, but it would completely change the dynamic of like
there's
if
a
they
lot
decide
of
to make
people
Dark
that want them
Souls
to go
and
back.
Bloodborne, if they made those games open world, I'm not sure how that would translate as well as like just having like a new title. So I would be really curious in the next few years when we start hearing about their next title, what that might be, because I would imagine they're going to go back to maybe making another Dark Souls, and I can't imagine they're going to make it open world, but it'd be interesting to see.
You think there's going to be another Dark Souls? Because my impression is that Elden Ring is kind of carrying the torch for Dark Souls, and that they'll probably continue to do stuff like Bloodborne and Sekiro, like one-off kind of mechanical experiments.
Well, I I don't think we're going to see Elden Ring 2 anytime soon.
Yeah,
I think
that
they're
might
going
be
to
true.
flip flop. I most likely they're either going to well they always outsource stuff. So what I would suspect is going to happen, and this is just a general prediction, they're going to outsource another team. I think Blue Point, right?
Yeah,
Probably them.
That's who does the
in order
remasters.
to-
Yeah.
they're probably either going to do a remaster of like a previous Dark Souls or maybe Bloodborne. And then at the same time, I think From is probably going to work on another. I don't see them working on another like IP. They're kind of stacked on IPs now. So I can see them either remaking or making like a sequel to Bloodborne or potentially making another Dark Souls. But
I-
that's probably not going to happen for like the next 3-4 years before we hear anything about that. So it'd be interesting to see.
The rumor has
like
it that
it's
the
kind of-
next title that they're working on is Armored Core, which is like a FromSoft IP
Oh,
that
right, Armored
predates Dark Souls even or Demon
Sure.
Souls. But I don't know that much about that. If that would even like if they would be like applying a Souls-like formula to that, or if it would be.
I don't even.
No, I think Armored
Haven't
Core
even
is
heard of
kind of
it.
like sitting outside of that
Yeah.
genre.
Oh
quite a
yeah,
bit.
no, for sure. I just don't know if
but I-
like they would tweak it to be more appealing to like their current
They should
fans.
put
like,
just literal
maybe,
bonfires
I don't
into
know.
Armored Core. That'd be really funny.
that's
actually.
the rumor, at least, is that they're working on a new Armored Core. But I did somewhere in the back of my head, I have it that that Miyazaki said that Dark Souls is done. Just like as a series,
Sounds like it
doesn't.
should be.
It doesn't mean that they won't make like. I mean, from what I understand, and I haven't played it, so don't spoil, please. But from what I've heard from others, the Ringed City apparently gives like a very like a large sense of finality to Dark Souls.
Okay.
That was
It
my
is, yeah.
understanding of it, at least. But
It's possible. I've never been good at following the stories in any of those games, so it's hard to know.
The story
if
is
they're ever
very
gonna make
much
another thing.
optional.
yeah,
Even
oh,
though
yeah.
you're never not doing like the main story, but at the same time, it's completely up to you if you
If-
figure
if
out
you
what the hell
care,
is
really.
going
They're
on.
sitting on a giant like technology stack where involving like open world related stuff. So if anything, if they do another open world game, it probably would be a sequel to Elden Ring, or it would be like a new IP that's using the existing technology. But I have no idea where they would go now, because they've done so many like different genres now. It would be interesting to see what we can expect from them in the future.
I think what
I
I'd
would
like
kind of
to see
expect
most.
Bloodborne to be the next, just because it's the one that they haven't fleshed out as much as the others.
I agree, but I do wonder if there's some weird like IP like ownership bullshit going on with Sony that has led to like the game basically just like never getting a remaster and like no word on
That's
a sequel
true.
or whatever.
That's a good point.
What I think
Like
I would
they want to make another Bloodborne.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
Maybe
why
they
wouldn't
can't.
they? People
Yeah.
fucking love Bloodborne.
Yeah.
What I'd like to see the most, I think, is just is maybe like a sort of like gimped open world, like not necessarily like as open as Elden Ring. And I don't know if I just mean smaller, but like maybe just like interconnected, like open Dark Souls levels, kind of. Like more so than like a fully open world. Like I admire the openness of
Like
Elden Ring a lot.
Stalker or like Witcher 1, where it's like kind of zones.
Maybe a little bit more open than that, but yeah, I'm kind of like maybe they're like, now that we've seen both ends of the spectrum, I'm kind of like maybe the best spot for them to be is kind of in a happy medium. Because it's clear that they had a lot of trouble like filling out all the content of the world of Elden Ring, which led to them just putting basically like chalice dungeons in the overworld, which like I didn't
Yeah.
hate them, but like if all of those got cut out of the game, or not all of it, but even if you like cut them in half and then like the result was just like instead of 40 chalice dungeons, the result was like 15 or 20 like much more
That was
interesting
a
ones,
bummer.
like then that might be a better situation. I do like you can kind of go anywhere and tackle objectives like really in any order, even though there is kind of like a hierarchy. It's still like that you have a lot of freedom of what to do. So I hope that they keep a lot of the good aspects of it and just refine and kind of like tighten the concepts for whatever they do next. And even if that means a smaller world, which I think it should, because I do think the world of Elden Ring is just a tad too big.
Just a tad.
that yeah, I think that's where I'd like to see them go. Personally,
Maybe they'll bring back Kingsfield.
that would be interesting.
Honestly, I think even if the world of Elden Ring was the same size and they just got rid of a lot of the like chalice dungeony type things, it would be a huge improvement because a good amount of my play time was sunk into like, well, I don't want to do this dungeon, but God knows what's at the end of it. I don't want to just Google
Yeah.
it. And then I also kind of wanted to 100% it my first time through, which I didn't. I thought I was close, and then of course I learned about hundreds of things that I missed after the fact.
I am kind of imagining like an open Yarnum, like from Bloodborne, and I think that would be really interesting
cool.
because you could still like close off and like blockade like streets that you don't want to flesh out, but then if you had sort of like an area that you could explore freely, I think that would be really cool. Because Bloodborne is very linear, just with kind of like optional side areas. But if you can basically just walk like in a straight line, quote unquote, through the game.
Sure. I think one of the issues is like the more you remove that linearity, the less control that you have on like being able to guess what the player is going to be doing. And I think that's why it's so incredibly difficult to design open world games like this, because you have
Without
a
level
general
scaling.
idea of what the player is going to do, but at least with Elden Ring, like everybody's first few experiences, like when they first get out into Limgrave, is vastly different. Like everybody does go through like the same critical like points for the most part, but like people are going south all the way like to the opposite side of the map. People stumble into a Caelid by accident.
Yeah, which is like this game's version of accidentally going into the catacombs at the beginning of Dark Souls.
Yeah, so like I
Oh
would
God,
imagine
that's what I did.
there is a happy medium between the two, but it really comes down to how much control do you want over knowing what the player is going to do. And as you allow them to have more freedom, there's way more ways to like break the game or sequence break stuff that isn't supposed to be broken.
People that are new to Souls games that died to the tree sentinel a few too many times and then quit,
Yeah,
even though you just don't have to fight it.
yeah.
Yeah, that part I always found really confusing.
Or
'cause you have,
Margit,
like-
who you do have to fight, but you can also just walk away from him.
You can do so much before you have
I wonder
to
if
fight
people
him.
just have been so conditioned to play more linear experiences that they don't even think like, oh, I could just go behind the
Or
building and go south and not even
you're
fight 'em,
expected to
or
be
go
able to
around.
do anything that you're like able to come across. And compare like Morrowind to like Skyrim, where it's like Skyrim's a good game, but Morrowind had so many situations you could end up in that were impossible. And then there's Skyrim that's like there's like the giants, which would kind of fuck you up when you first got there, but like you could just run away from them, and that was about the only thing that didn't just level scale to you. So
Yeah, I hope as far as the Elder Scrolls stuff goes, I hope they get rid of level scaling in the next game.
Oh,
but
they won't.
yeah, if they at least just make it more believable than Skyrim. I'm honestly gonna say something that might not be a popular opinion, but I actually unironically think that Elden Ring could have benefited from a tiny bit of soft level scaling, because it's way too easy to overlevel yourself by accident. I still think you should be rewarded for grinding, and just like getting powerful and finding good gear and stuff. But I think that like it wouldn't hurt if bosses like HP scaled a little bit.
There's a common strategy now, which is just like you've got normal level scaling, but then everything that's like weaker than you like scales up a bit, but things that are stronger than you just stay the way they are.
Yeah.
So you're not like
That makes sense.
it's not like everything's too easy, but at the same time, like there are still tough challenges.
There's a
It
cap to
can
how
make
easy it
games
can
feel
get.
Yeah, it does make some areas feel a little bland. You don't want to completely lose the feeling of like becoming more powerful, but there's no perfect solution.
Well,
just
the
in
thing
general,
Elden Ring throws that to the wind anyways, because the mountaintops is a big fuck you to how powerful you are when you're leaving Leyndell. Like, which like, yeah, I mean, like, because everyone is going to run into the big stone wall that is the giant's health bar. Like, it's just, it's going to happen to everyone. So I think that like the scaling could have alleviated a bit of that like jarringness. And like, especially like, it's such a shame, like how over leveled you can make yourself for Morgott, because I think that that would be bar none like the best boss fight in the game and probably one of the most memorable that they've ever done. If you just had like, I don't know, 25 to 50% more health. Anyways, I digress. That's my hill that I'm dying on for this game. Zach, you are kind of the one who has had the least Souls experience. And I think Elden Ring is the only Souls game that
The only one
played.
I finished. It's I played 2 hours of Dark Souls before returning it and calling it quits on Steam.
And you had the classic went into the catacombs first experience, right? Yeah.
Dude, you're like not even a real gamer.
I'm not even a real gamer.
Dude, I honestly think that I would have been like you if I hadn't been streaming the game, because like because I was streaming it, I felt more compelled to finish it. But there was like, I was going the right way. There was times when I was like, if I was not on stream right now, I would have put down my controller and closed this game probably forever.
You started playing that before Elden Ring came out, right?
Yeah, I was
it even
playing
harder
it
to keep playing after getting a taste of modern Souls games compared to like it's pretty dated by now.
I was playing it in preparation for Elden Ring because I wanted to have some Souls experience, because I knew Elden Ring, like there were some people who thought like, and it was mostly fans of the games that were worried that Elden Ring was going to be too easy because it was gearing up to be like, you know, the most popular and accessible game, and that hasn't been the case at all. If anything, it's quite hard. It's probably harder ultimately than any of the previous games, at least by some measures. But it wasn't that bad, because Elden Ring definitely made me better at just like Souls games in general, just timing and like all that stuff. And even though it is like mechanically different in Dark Souls, I was kind of at the end game and going into the DLC. So I was fighting like the Sanctuary Guardian, Artorias, and Manus, who are all, and Calamite, who's just basically a dragon boss from Elden Ring. And they all felt a lot more in line with like Elden Ring enemies and bosses than the like base game of Dark Souls did. So I didn't have that much trouble with it. And if anything, I liked those bosses the best because they were closer to what I was like sort of grinding my teeth on in Elden Ring at that moment in time. So, but yeah, Zach, does your finishing of Elden Ring give you a desire to go back to play any of the other games, or?
It would. I would maybe try 3. I think if I was going to do that,
I'd try 3.
Yeah, I know it's like a pretty good game. I think honestly though, the big draw to me for Elden Ring was I really liked kind of like the whole high fantasy. Like if I had to describe almost what D&D could be like as a video game, the fact that this has like so much, you know, different accessibility to spells and like different weapon types, and then like also, you know, you're fighting dragons and like tyrannical lords and like demigods. That was a huge draw for me. So like the lore and the story and all that was super appealing. Whereas like, you know, the older Dark Souls games, I would have to kind of like look into it a bit.
Yeah, I think that Dark Souls, like lore wise, is definitely the most similar. But if you wanted like kind of a more streamlined experience, I think that Sekiro is also like it's definitely punishing from what I've heard, but I think it's a little more approachable than Dark Souls in a lot of ways. And I've been enjoying Bloodborne too, but Bloodborne is pretty esoteric. And if you like the build aspect, Bloodborne has a little bit of that, but not a ton. It's also pretty streamlined.
I would consider it. I don't know if I'm going to do it anytime soon, especially with some of the games that are coming out in the future. But I think 220 hours in the span of like 2.5 months is probably the most time I've dedicated to a game in such a short amount of time in quite a while.
Yeah, so, I get that.
No kidding.
I definitely get that.
What my playtime is.
I think mine on Steam says like 170 is what it says, but I know at least like 20. I left it on for like a day, or left the EXE running for like a day before I noticed, because it did have that issue for a while where the actual application wouldn't close. It would just run in the background. I
have 208.4, and that was in a disturbingly small window. So,
well, all right. Yeah. Do we? Does anyone have anything else they want to say, or can we close it there?
I'm gonna go play Elden Ring.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna go play Bloodborne, but it did make me want to go back to that New Game Plus file I was working on.
I can't wait to eat the burrito that got delivered to me at the start of the stream.
Holy shit. Cold ass burrito. Well, anyways, thank you guys for coming on. I'm hoping we can do these a little more regularly again. I just had a fucked up schedule, but and more normal, not tornado interrupted and not like Elden Ring exclusive discussion. Just like go back to kind of our normal state of just like fucking around for 2 hours. As long as we don't have anything else pressing to talk about. But anyways, for everyone listening, I will keep you posted on the Discord and whatnot about what's going on with that. And yeah, thank you guys for coming on. And like I said, I'll be streaming Bloodborne, so I'll be back in just a minute. But I suppose right now we can say goodbye to Parker, Garrett, and Zach. Thank you guys for coming on. And yeah, I'm going to throw it to a break and I'll be right back.